why this is so horrible that they canceled these games, but we haven't even seen the games. We didn't even see the games. How do we know that this was a bad decision?
What do you need to know?
To feel like the bottom
because
is falling out.
I'm
people that
already
made Black
there.
Panther, one of the women that
Where
was
to
running
now?
the game said that she didn't
I'll
want to work
find
with
a
white
way.
people because they made her like she couldn't communicate or talk to white people in the right way. You really think that people like that are going to be able to create a good product? Probably not. They're retarded.
The U.S. games industry. If this really is the
Back to
beginning of the
McDonald's.
end of the U.S. dominating video games,
Control
it's
Group
at least
created.
partially a self-inflicted wound fueled by reckless consolidation and tech industry greed, buying up everything they can without actually understanding why people buy video games. It's honestly completely infuriating, but it's the narrative that's being built. It's not just the U.S. games industry, honestly. There's reports that video game spending is just down across the board.
I think the reason why video game spending is going down is because there's so many free games that are available that people play regularly. Things like Fortnite, for example. And so as you've seen that transition happen, and also another big reason is because 18 to 24-year-olds have less disposable income. So like if you're comparing this to COVID, like what are you comparing it to, 2021? It's very well documented that during recessionary periods that luxury
Need something
purchases
destroyed?
actually go up.
Bring
It's
it
just,
out the big
a lot of
guns.
this is just not.
Affirmative.
It's not contextualized in a way that I think is accurate. New games are microtransaction trash. Yeah, market's oversaturated. They play
It's
gacha games
about
now.
time.
Well, I mean, I think that would be included, right?
COVID, all these companies bet on infinite growth. But hey, remember how we were all stuck indoors and the best thing to do with
Was play
that
video
situation
games.
is
All
play video
power to
games?
jump
And now
drive.
we aren't all stuck indoors anymore.
Scouts have found a colonizable
there's
planet.
A shock. Were these people thinking that the disease was going to keep us inside forever? Like that
Gotta make
wasn't
COVID
the
20.
new normal. It was a
More crystal is
aberration
needed.
in human history.
Yes.
That's not how human history works. I know people like 28 years later, but that wouldn't happen, man.
I haven't
not
seen it
just
yet.
the whole
I heard it was good.
zombie aspect of it, but like they die out. The zombies starve.
Yeah.
They can't think. They just do rage shit, and eventually you run out of energy. That's how diseases
And I
work.
thought the
They
breed was
become
some kind of
less As they
cheese.
spread antibody. We don't need to get into it. I just can't fathom
Mining
the
upgrade
reaction
complete.
from all these companies
Here
that
to
because
take out
we're
the
in a
trash.
pandemic and we're locked down and everybody's playing video games, that's how it's always going to be. I just can't fathom.
He's right, but I
Our
think that
fleet
his
is under
perspective is
attack.
also short-sighted. Because if you look at a lot of the company's growth patterns from
Civilian
before and
structure
after COVID,
complete.
many companies
Go
retain
ahead.
40 to 60%
Transmission
of
received.
their COVID
Need
numbers.
something
So
destroyed?
I'll give you a couple of examples just to kind of prove this.
Time to flex my muscles.
We're going to look at Twitch Tracker, right? And this just shows
A
statistics.
new
for
colony
Twitch.
has been founded.
You can see that as COVID was a massive multiplier on the popularity of Twitch, after COVID
Time is
ended,
short.
they maintained a lot of that popularity afterwards.
What's this?
You can look at, let me think of another, are there more examples? Steam users. So let's
Our
take a
planet
look at
is
that
under
over here,
siege.
and we'll see if there's a graph also. And you can see right here, you can
Mining
see obviously
upgrade
COVID was
complete.
a massive, a
Time is
massive
short.
amount of people coming into the demographic, but it continued to maintain. So this entire idea that
Civilian
the COVID
research
levels
tier
of
complete.
success
Make it
were
fast.
not at least partially maintained is untrue.
Affirmative.
Now, obviously, it didn't just
All
continue the
power to
line
jump
going up straight
drive.
up. Absolutely not. But the reality is that with a lot of these companies, they did retain
Civilian
a
structure
tremendous amount of
complete.
the people
Give
that
the
they,
order.
that they brought
Scouts
into
have found
their,
a colonizable
their
planet.
ecosystem.
Planet
Steam
item
DB has a better
complete.
graph. Let me see if I can pull that up and find it real quick. And
Our fleet is under attack.
charts maybe.
I
Can
won't
just
let
find
you
a few
down.
Charts?
Make it
Concurrent
fast.
Steam users. Okay. Let me
Time
see if
to
I can
kick
show
some
this right here.
ass.
So concurrent Steam users over the last 8 years. And you can see right here, this clearly, yeah, this is a great graph. After the 9 years, so this is COVID-19, right? And you can see that Steam is even going up after that. So Netflix as well. Yeah, you can
Need
look at Netflix
something
as well. Also.
destroyed? This
So,
is
but
how
maintaining that
Space
growth
Junk
no
is
longer
born.
growth. Yeah, exactly.
Commerce
right?
upgrade complete.
That there's no set of information that implies that, and yet, oof, geez. And the younger generation is literally getting priced out of their own hobby. Games that casual audiences might actually
Got a
want,
job
like
for me?
Perfect Dark,
I'll
they're
do
not
my
getting
best.
Made, and Halo is not out of the woods. Who even knows what's going on?
Civilian
with
research
343 right now?
complete.
Well, the thing
Scouts
the
have
fact
found a
that
colonizable
343
planet.
aren't in the unemployment line right now is an insult to Halo players.
Time is short.
It's a complete insult. Like, they've failed 3 games so far. 3 games they've released with the largest IP in Xbox history, and they failed. Like, why are they not at McDonald's? They should be at McDonald's. Did anybody want or
Give
ask
the
for
order.
Perfect Dark?
Yes, sir.
I think that if they remade Perfect Dark, Jet Force Gemini,
Go ahead.
Conker's
Deploying.
Bad Fur Day, or like one of these like older video games, like the
Make it
what was
fast.
the Odd Odyssey or whatever.
In space, no one will
And
hear them
if
scream.
If they remade those, people would lose their fucking
Give
minds.
the order.
They would be so happy. Yeah, Lost Odyssey, exactly. And Oddworld, yeah, there you go, Oddworld. And
Commerce upgrade complete.
it's not about that. It's not about the IP. It's about the quality of the games.
No. I know
Need
this
something
is a real
destroyed?
problem, but it's
And
pretty
I
hard
thought
not
the
to
brie was
express
some kind of
it.
cheese.
If there's something I can
Scouts
say to
have found a
counteract
colonizable
negativity,
planet.
it's that
Civilian
Xbox
research
is vague.
complete.
All the news that's been dropped the last few days is
It's
bad.
very obvious that Xbox has completely recalibrated their business model.
But
It's
that
obvious.
doesn't mean it's over. It means there's some major reshuffling going on. They do still have
It's
more than 40
about
games
time.
in development. There's at least one more Xbox.
Yeah, let's see. This game's gonna do well. This one will do well. This one will do well. This one will do well. This one might do well. This one I don't. This one will do well. It's just a reload.
Give the order.
This one will do well. Resonance, I heard this game was pretty good. High on Life, I don't know about this. Clockwork
I'll
Revolution.
do my best.
Insanely fun. Like this trailer was ridiculous. This one's probably gonna suck. Let's see here. Persona 4 will probably do well. Let's see here. Fallout
Phase
76,
jump
I don't
underway.
know. Sea of Thieves continually does well, and that's about it. The other one's probably not so much. Maybe Super Meat Boy will be kind of popular, but I don't really think so.
Console in the future,
Grounded
probably.
2 might do
At
the
least that's
best.
what we're hearing. Game Pass isn't
not
going to
gonna
go
be-
away.
it's not gonna be Call of
35
Duty.
million subscribers is a lot. It's maybe not the license to print money Xbox and Microsoft hoped it was, but 35 million
Time is
subscribers
short.
a success. They
Here
should
to
hold
take
on to
out
that
the
because,
trash.
If I'm not mistaken,
Commerce
the
upgrade
current
complete.
Game subscription service that is successful. Like,
Yeah.
if there's a Netflix equivalent, it's Game Pass. So the
It
news
is.
isn't all bad. It's important to keep in mind that even with all these internal issues at Microsoft,
Scouts have
they
found
are
a colonizable
de facto
planet.
Still the number one games publisher
where
in the
to,
world.
Commander?
That is because they own both Bethesda and Activision, but still Xbox isn't going anywhere. And yeah, it's easy to lay the blame on Phil Spencer, and certainly he does deserve plenty. Sarah Bond,
He's responsible, and she's
Civilian
responsible
research
too.
complete.
I don't think it's
Civilian
exclusively
research
their
tier
fault,
complete.
But I think them
A new
spreading
colony
themselves
has
too
been
thin
founded.
and working on all of these
Go
extra
ahead.
projects while not maintaining and curating
Insufficient
the
metal.
prime Xbox IPs, Fable, Halo, and Gears. Huge mistake.
the president of Xbox, and Max Booty, the president of Game Content Studios, they deserve some blame here as well. But I do want to say
Insufficient
this. At the
metal.
end of the day, they are also just cogs in the Microsoft machine. Phil still has to answer to Satya Nadella, the CEO and chairman of Microsoft.
yeah.
And you better believe that it was probably him and not Phil that was pushing for the reduction.
Need
Instead,
something
Phil's just
destroyed?
He's right to do that.
Scouts have found a colonizable planet.
He's right, and it will be shown that he's right in the coming years. A lot of these studios will be making the same decisions. These guys aren't stupid.
Mining upgrade complete.
He's not
Civilian
stupid.
research complete.
Like they know exactly what they're doing.
Make it fast. It's about time.
Unfortunately, though, at the end of the day, Xbox is a small portion of Microsoft's frankly massive empire. The successes and failures of that division are just a drop in the bucket compared to the revenue that the other divisions bring in, which is an important and humbling reminder of just how seriously the company takes the division, which appears to be not that much. In the past few years...
It's an added media brand that sells other products and keeps people in entertainment inside of the Microsoft ecosystem, but it's not its own product by itself. And I think that if Xbox had to exist without the funding and subsidy from Microsoft, it would probably
Scouts have found a colonizable planet.
But Xbox can provide
insufficient metal
that's disproportionate to the value that it provides to itself, to Microsoft as a whole.
Insufficient
that
metal
creates its value in the aggregate. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand with why, for example, Amazon doesn't sell Twitch and why Microsoft doesn't sell Xbox. It's because these things they're existing inside of a larger ecosystem that feeds into each other.
Your arguments are compelling. I shall stand with you. I will deliver your order personally.
30% of Microsoft's market
where
share,
to, Commander?
Microsoft's value and income. It's around, I think it's 25 to 35%.
Civilian research complete. Deploying.
Nadella,
Make it
felt
fast.
like the sword of Damocles
40?
was just hanging over Xbox.
Commerce upgrade
we have
complete.
No idea what's going on behind
Need
the scenes.
something
It's all
destroyed?
pure speculation, but it literally just could be that rather than a string of bad decisions.
Got a job for me?
That I
In
would say it's
space,
that,
no one will
I
hear
think
them
that they have made
scream.
a string of bad
Make
decisions.
it fast.
Also,
Our fleet is
they've
under
released
attack.
a number of really bad games.
Affirmative.
That's
Scouts
true.
have found
I
a
think that they're
colonizable
making
planet.
Really good structural
Time is
decisions,
short.
but their creative decisions
And I
are
thought
horrible.
the brie was some kind of cheese.
could have been
Time to
the
bid.
inevitable
Place am
outcome of
I.
the last few years.
A new
Just trying to
colony
keep
has been
the division
founded.
alive when the vultures
Insufficient
of
metal.
Other divisions are circling. I want to note that this is possible and probably some of the explanation at bare minimum. But it's also not to say that the Xbox team hasn't made serious blunders. The way they've handled their internal
Time is
studios,
short.
like 343 The Coalition, and the now closed The Initiative
It's about
has been
time.
a disgrace. Xbox was handed some of the greatest IPs ever, like Halo, Gears of War, and yes, Perfect Dark. There was major potential there, and they squandered it with poor management.
Perfect Dark did not have major
Commerce
potential.
upgrade
It didn't
complete.
have the same type of name recognition. It was a game that was popular on like what, Nintendo 64 or GameCube or something. Like the game again, like it's
All
good that you're
power to
making a new
jump
version of
drive.
this, but you're effectively making a new game.
To praise Microsoft's hands-off approach to game development in the past, and it's led to some amazing stuff.
Like
especially
look at that gameplay. Does this really make you want to spend $70?
Microsoft's hands-off approach to game development.
Make it
in the past,
fast.
and it's led to some amazing stuff, especially
Scouts
from
have found a
Obsidian, who have
colonizable
proven
planet.
to be the MVPs of the entire division lately.
Why would you say
Let
that?
this be a
Avowed was
lesson.
horrible
Next time, pay
Avowed was a
up.
horrible game. It got blown the fuck out by Oblivion that came out 17 years prior. And also, if it wasn't so bad, then why did they lose staff and the person that led the company for Avowed? Why did the
All
person
right,
leave?
you twisted me arm.
It was a massive failure. Like by all metrics and all ways that you can look at
Commerce
it, it was a
upgrade
tremendous and
complete.
colossal failure.
Seriously, you know who I haven't had to mention up till this point in the video? Obsidian. That is of note, to say the least. But in the
Need
case
something
of
destroyed?
other studios management, like of Halo and Gears specifically, maybe a little more hands-on would have been helpful if they had. Maybe
True,
the
that's a
initiative
great
wouldn't
point.
floundered for nearly 10 years with basically nothing to show for it with Perfect Dark. Like, I'm sorry.
And this gameplay is garbage. Hunters shouldn't be moving around like this. They should be
All
big
power
lumbering
to jump
giants, not
drive.
outrunning Master Chief. This is ridiculous. This is awful. It totally,
the order.
like, I'm sorry, but like, I played Halo.
Civilian research
played Halo
complete.
1, played Halo
Scouts
2,
have found a
Halo
colonizable
3.
planet.
This is not the way it should work.
Floundered for nearly 10 years with basically nothing to show for it with Perfect Dark. Like,
Garbage.
I'm sorry, but
Need
it's not that
something
hard to make a
destroyed?
Perfect Dark game.
Watch
you could
this.
literally just reboot it and do the first game's
Our fleet
plot
is under
with some
attack.
changes, And I think
Watch
everybody would be
this.
pretty psyched as long as it turned out well. Like, it doesn't even really have to be original.
Give
as
the
long
order.
as it does what
Attack.
it's supposed to do.
Need
and
something
adds enough
destroyed?
That it's not just
Time
the
to
same
flex
thing.
my
Like, the initiative was
muscles.
formed in 2016. They've had basically nothing but some vertical slices, according to reports.
A new
Compare
colony has been
Microsoft's handling
founded.
of their studios to someone like Nintendo, who's very hands-on. Some developers buckle under the pressure. Yeah, I've seen reports.
Nintendo has also
Time
even
is
said
short.
that recently, this was a statement they made in
It's
the past couple
about
of days,
time.
is that they're even rethinking the way that they develop video games, and they're going to be changing the way that they're developing to go towards
Mining
shorter
upgrade
development cycles
complete.
in order to save money, in order to meet customer demands. Because the pricing, I think really probably the pricing of Mario Kart
All
was a
power to
wake-up call
jump
for them.
drive.
We need Prime 4 now? Yeah, for sure. Samus looks stupid.
Scouts have found a
I can see
colonizable
why people
planet.
say that, but yeah, it's a little bit out of proportion.
Time is short.
That just means more slot.
I will deliver your order
Well, I mean,
personally.
that's not
Civilian
true at all.
research complete.
Metro Studios really struggled with Nintendo working on Metroid Prime, but at the end of the day, it's an all-time great game. With Xbox, it's 10 years of nothing followed by cancellation.
Give
and that's
the
always
order.
been a problem
Yes,
with
sir.
Xbox to a certain
Time
degree.
to kick
This
some
slow,
ass.
gradual transition from major hardware competitor to third-party software developer, publisher, whatever. It's sad to see. Maybe in Microsoft's eyes, this is a more profitable direction to take.
Got a
things, but
job
as a
for me?
gamer, it
Our
feels like
fleet
the
is
money
under
you're finding
attack.
feels like
I won't
the
let you
Totally
down.
disagree.
Attack. I'm
I
on it.
disagree a lot with this
Time
video.
is
I think
short.
this video brings up good points, but I
I've
don't think
got a present for you.
I don't agree with his evaluation of a lot of these.
There is good
I
as
agree with his
dead.
assessment, but I don't agree with his conclusion.
Commerce upgrade complete.
I think the
This
reality
is
is
how
that
space junk is
why
born.
would Xbox continue to make consoles in a market that they're already cannibalizing their own sales in? Xbox is in a very unique circumstance that when an Xbox
Got a
player
job for
buys
me?
a console and they choose not to play a game on
Affirmative.
PC, they're effectively cannibalizing a sale. Because now this is somebody that you've already sold them Windows. You've
What
already
now?
decided that. Now you're selling them the
Let
same
'em
thing
have it.
again,
Make
and
it
it's being
fast.
sold at a loss. It's just not a commercially good decision in
Affirmative.
any way. They're a giant corporation now. They only care about profits. What do you think? The smaller companies don't? They all care about profits.
Industry itself,
It's
the hobby,
about
not necessarily
time.
Xbox,
Time
but this
to
is
flex
a huge
my
pillar of the
muscles.
gaming industry.
Watch
It's been
this.
humble. I told
Got
you,
a
I'm
job
not
for me?
console wars
A
person.
new colony
Seeing
has
this
been
happen to
founded.
a big company that was this successful, which technically has a much bigger company behind it, that up until this point has just been willing to fund it to no end. I mean, if you don't see something in those tea leaves, I don't know if you're looking. That doesn't
Got
look
a job
good.
for me?
Like, I will say it could be an economic response to the post-COVID dip, and it may eventually even out. Maybe all this doom and gloom around Xbox is important.
It is.
Maybe they had to make these moves,
is.
and this is stuff
They did.
that will
Commerce
end up
upgrade
working out in the
complete.
future. I don't
Shields
know. That is
down.
an
We should take evasive
old-time-
action.
Sony's going to do the same thing, by the way. Sony's going to do the same thing that Xbox is doing now, with shutting down studios, probably. Nintendo, you're probably not going to hear about it because, like, the way that Nintendo does press and everything is very different. But Sony, you'll probably see the same thing happen.
Game Bird, someone who's watched this happen to Sega and now is watching it again with Xbox, but now in a completely different economic climate. Seeing how things have been going the last few years just really sucks. I don't really care about Microsoft's bottom line. I care about video games. In the case of this situation, I care about Xbox games and positive feelings I've had about the original console. and all the
Insufficient
amazing
metal.
games back on the 360. But more and more, the division feels less like that Xbox and more just Bethesda and Activision because they're really doing the lion's share of the game publishing now. Almost all the old stalwarts at Xbox, the games that put the console on the map, they're seemingly dying. I hope that's not the case. I hope Halo comes back bigger and better than ever. But right now, that possibility feels
Why would
very...
Halo come back and be better if they're being made by the same company that's made
Mining
bad Halo
upgrade
games?
complete. Scouts have found a
I also
colonizable
think
planet.
that Microsoft does a very bad job managing their own IPs. Like, whenever I heard that there was
Make
going to
it
be a
fast.
secret level crossover episode with the Doomslayer and Master Chief, and for some reason they didn't do that, it gave me the insight to understand that I don't think that they understand, like, that type of fan service. Like, everybody thinks of fan service as, like, you know, your favorite anime girl in a bikini, but there's actually a lot more to it than that. And I think this type of fan service is something that they should be doing.
Very distant. So to answer the question, what the hell is going on in Xbox?
Insufficient
What the hell is up with
metal.
Xbox? What the
Civilian
hell
research
is this?
complete.
Well, a lot of people are getting fired, and some highly anticipated games are getting canceled. Unfortunately, the vaporware nature of both Perfect Dark and Everwild means that the cancellations are probably justified.
Like, no, this doesn't appeal to anybody. Nobody wants this.
Done and dusted.
This is going to be a game. It's going to release on Steam. It's going to have 1,200 players. Like, really, like, I'm just being honest. Sorry, somebody's got to say it.
These were probably money holes.
It's canceled?
That doesn't make it not
That's
Sting,
right.
though.
Need
What really sucks
something
is the loss of all these
destroyed?
other unnamed
Logistics
games from
upgrade
Bethesda,
complete.
Including a new IP from ZeniMax. It all just looks really bad for Xbox on the whole, but this was the inevitable result of their purchase of Bethesda and Activision. Like, that's how industry stuff works. Jobs are gonna get lost. But I don't know if anybody really predicted how bad this is going to get. The cutting around
This is
Time
only
to
the beginning.
bid.
It's going to
Place
get so
am
much worse.
I.
50% of the staff at turn 10, the guys behind Forza, is especially brutal. As
Time
were the
is
cuts at
short.
Call of Duty developers like Raven and Sledgehammer. I mean, Call of Duty is basically a license to print money. Now, like, that's not changing either. It doesn't have any evidence of changing. So if you think anyone would
It's
be protected,
about
it would be
time.
them. It's a bloodbath across the board, and things might sound really bad. Xbox, unfortunately, whether they deserve to or not, is going to weather the storm. What Xbox is going to be
That's
after
true.
the storm,
Civilian structure
I have no
complete.
idea, but Microsoft is a monolith. They're basically untouchable in the tech space, and at least for now, it seems like
Time
there's
is
interest
short.
in keeping the
Civilian
gaming
structure
alive.
complete.
Otherwise, it wouldn't
Watch
be,
this.
a percentage of layout. They could just shut the whole damn thing down.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe in the future we'll look back and see this as another step in the decline of Xbox that started all the way back in 2013 with that embarrassing Xbox One reveal, or maybe not.
That's
I
a really good point. I do think that was the decline of Xbox.
Military research tier
The
complete.
Xbox One definitely broke the trust of, as like, for me, the Xbox One reveal
Let
made
this
me a
be a
PlayStation
lesson.
fan.
Next time,
Like,
pay
I was a
up.
big Xbox Andy. Like, I had an Xbox backpack in high school. And I also didn't have a girlfriend.
All power to
But
jump
that kind
drive.
of goes without saying. It totally broke my trust. And the thing is, what's ironic about it now is that I actually think that Xbox is the best publisher out there in terms of ethics. Like, Xbox is the most pro consumer publisher between them, Sony, and Nintendo. So out of all the three console developers, Xbox is far and away the
All
best.
right, you twisted me arm.
Hope
Make
things
it fast.
stabilize, not just for the
Civilian
future
research
of
complete.
Xbox, but for
Civilian
the future
structure
of
Valve
complete.
is better.
And the developers
But,
and
like,
workers that are
besides
still
that-
with the company.
Commerce
And hell,
upgrade
the developers and workers
complete.
that aren't with the company anymore. There is a serious problem if Xbox is facing the need to cut at this rate. That has implications beyond if they keep their job at Xbox. Are
This
there
isn't
going
Xbox. This is a tech. This is a tech thing in general. Didn't Meta drop 20,000 employees last year? This is happening on a macro level.
to be jobs elsewhere to get? There's a lot up in the air right now. Morale has got to be at rock
Need
bottom. at the
something
company. So
destroyed?
hopefully things
It's
improve
about
for these guys,
time.
and they're able to make great games, because that's
Military
what's
research
what matters,
complete.
right? That's what we all hope
This looks like
happens.
garbage.
What do you think? Leave us a comment. Let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos.
Exotic
every day.
resources have
Best
been
way to see
located
them
by our
first
survey
is, of
teams.
course,
A
subscription.
powerful
So
artifact has been
subscribe.
found
Don't
by our
forget to
survey
notifications,
teams.
and
This
as
might
always,
be the edge we
thank you
need.
for watching this video.
Exotic
I'm
resources have been
Calvin
located
on
by our
Twitter,
survey
@Calvin
teams.
Hero. We'll see you
All
next time,
power to
right here
jump
on Joe News.
drive.
It's funny because I literally disagreed with pretty much every point that he made in this video, but I do appreciate videos like this being made. I think that his analysis is looking at Xbox inside of a vacuum. And there's the video. Give it a like. GameRanks is
Logistics
great.
upgrade
They're
complete.
Amazing. And even though I disagree with them, you know, for me, in a lot of ways, I like
need
videos
more
I disagree with
Endurium.
more. I get to talk about it more. So yeah, that's really how I see it. DEI hires are causing problems, or are they cutting entire programs? I think it's probably a bit of both. I do. And yeah, give the video a like, give them a sub. I mean, GameRanks is huge. And it's every single industry, every corner of the world. There are people who have control and power, have no idea what they're doing. Yeah, exactly. It's happening everywhere. Tale as old as time is small. It's a lot of indie studios popping up on the horizon with great passion projects. Yeah, that's a great thing too. Xbox has got to
In
reevaluate
space,
the kind
no
of games
one will
they're
hear
making.
them scream.
They gotta
Watch
stop making
this.
dog shit that nobody wants. Western
Our
gaming
fleet is under
studios
attack.
are infected with a virus of the mind.
Civilian
They think that
research
people wanna
complete.
watch fat, ugly, middle-aged women do
Civilian structure
karate
complete.
tricks and kung fu.
Military
No,
research complete.
nobody wants that.
A new colony has
They
been
don't want
founded.
that. That's not it.
Done and dusted.
You gotta make real
Insufficient
games. You gotta
metal.
make games for gamers. If you're not making games for gamers, you're having problems. Like whenever
Make
I
it
saw
fast.
that Gears of War E-Day
Watch
trailer, I
this.
thought to myself, maybe finally they're learning. It was
Exotic
just
resources
Marcus
have
and
been
Dom
located by our survey
fighting
teams.
a fucking some demon, and that was it. There was no bullshit. There was no weird messaging. It was just
Research
two
rate
dudes
upgrade
killing a dude.
complete.
That's it. If you look at Doom, The Dark Ages, I think that game was really bad. I think it was just a bad game. I know it might be an unpopular
Scouts have found
opinion,
a colonizable
but when I
planet.
compare the aura and
Planet
the
item
gameplay
complete.
and the quality
Military
of
research
something like
complete.
Space Marine 2
Military research tier
with
complete.
Doom, which are two games I really compare them a lot. It's not
Make
even in
it
the same
fast.
universe. From the competition standpoint, Xbox is not competing with anyone. None of their existing IPs are even close to Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, God of War. They're only losing money and spending to lose more money. No. If they made a new Halo, and also Warzone was the biggest BR, maybe not bigger than Fortnite, to be fair. Fortnite is just unstoppable.
Civilian research
But,
complete.
Other than that, Warzone was the biggest BR in 2020 and maybe also 2021. It was a huge success. Like, nobody should be thinking about that. Yeah, even PUBG.
Commerce upgrade
Yeah,
complete.
And PUBG was published by Microsoft too, I'm pretty sure too. Yeah, like they popped the fuck off. Like they've had a number of really big W's, and here's a W right here. The Oblivion remaster, they shadow dropped this, and I don't know how many copies they sold, but they had over 200,000 people playing this game concurrently on just Steam. Warzone was so ass. No, Warzone when it came out brought in loadouts and the Gulag, which totally changed the way that BRs work. And that
Hostile
even had
forces have arrived.
companies
Need
like
something
Respawn. I
destroyed?
think Respawn makes Apex.
Affirmative.
Then they had the
Exotic
cards, so you
resources
can-
have been
so you can
located
bring
by our
people back
survey
too.
teams. Military research
the
complete.
buybacks, yeah, and all that. Like there was a
Exotic
lot of it.
resources
Now
have been
you're at
located
Starship,
by our
yeah,
survey
they
teams.
haven't managed
Planet
the IP
item
very well.
complete.
But before that, it was great. Warzone was really good. Yeah, it was. Warzone was amazing at launch. I played it every day, man. I played it every single day. It was so fucking fun. But yeah, PUBG is still huge in Asia. Yeah, I know it is. But either way, I think Xbox has a really bright future. And I think the reason why people don't see it is because they don't understand that Xbox's future is something... Xbox is going to exist as a service and not as a machine. That's, I think, what people don't understand yet. And Xbox is going to
Commerce
sell
upgrade
machines that are
complete.
optimized to deliver that service. But primarily, the service is going to be the product.
Civilian research complete.
And I think that's what... Sure, buddy? I'm telling you, that's what I think is...
All power to jump
I
drive.
could be wrong. That's what I think.
The Last of Us
Time
Season
is
2 has
short.
came and went, leaving behind a horde of destroyed ratings and good intentions as HBO has been left to pick up the pieces. Anyone who played the games, they knew this season was
Exotic
going to be
resources
awful,
have been
and somehow
located by our
HBO
survey
took what
teams.
was already considered one of the worst AAA stories in recent years and elevated it into peak absurdity with nonsense like Ellie's actor saying things like this.
Done and dusted.
Dad.
Hey, I remember when movies made me feel things.
Movies still make me feel things. I feel regret most of the time.
Yep, The Last of Us Season 2 was terrible. Now
Got a
the name of the
job
show
for me?
conveys a many
I'll do my
people are
best.
even left watching that dumpster fire after Joel died and all the other plot contrivances that have
Yes,
happened,
sir.
as IMDb reported here.
Make it
Season
fast.
2 lost 55% of its
Time to
entire
kick
viewer
some
base, which
ass.
is staggeringly bad for a show that costed millions
Civilian
per
research
episode to make.
complete.
To give you some
Need
raw numbers,
something
Season 1 of
destroyed?
the show ended with 8.2 million viewers watching. Season 2 began with 5.3 million. By the time the finale aired, they had only 3.7 million viewers who stuck around after Joel got his head caved in. Yep, none of this went well, but again, as someone who played the games, I knew what was coming, and I knew the audience out there, the non-gaming audience I mean, would probably mass exodus out of the show the moment that Joel got, what Joel got. And I was right. And now Neil Druckmann, who believes he's meant to be the next Hideo Kojima or something, has admitted defeat. This is from Naughty Dog's official Twitter. I've made the difficult decision to step away from my creative involvement in The Last of Us on HBO. With work completed on Season 2 and before any meaningful work starts in Season 3, now is the right time for me to transition my complete focus to Naughty Dog and its future projects, including writing and directing our exciting next game, Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet, along with my responsibilities as studio head and head of creative. I could keep reading, but you get the point. Neil's leaving the show after the disastrous release of Season 2, and it's not really surprising at all. I guarantee you he left because HBO pulled the higher executive card on the show, and then told Craig Mazin, that's
Make it
this guy here,
fast.
by the way, and Neil, which is this guy here in case you just don't know, that The Last of Us Season 3
They're
has
as
to
good
go
as
force
dead.
and fix this mess before they're releasing episodes.
Logistics
that
upgrade
are
complete.
viewer-wise
This is how space junk is born. Time to kick some ass. They're as good as dead. Time to kick some ass. It's about time. I've got a present for ya. This is how space junk is born.
Show all the characters who died in Season 2 pretty much getting more fleshed out and humanized so that their deaths have more meaning
Military
now in
research
retrospect.
complete.
However, obviously, it's all for naught anyways, because no matter how they choose to expand these characters and their personalities, the end result is still that they were involved with Joel's death, so naturally the audience is not going to give two craps about feeling sorry that someone like Owen or Nora dies, because the end result either way is that they were complicit with Joel's death, someone we actually cared about. But what I think was the most sobering and confirming part of this whole phenomenon is how the general audience, not the indie responded to Neil Druckmann's vision of Season 2, which is that they completely rejected it and walked
Insufficient
away,
metal.
proving that the
Let the
criticisms
bidding
they said
commence.
were true. I guarantee you that Neil and Craig Mazin thought that there would be no issue with Season 2, that audiences would love and totally be behind to stick around for Ellie to see what happens next. And clearly that 55% of your viewer base, well, they disagreed with that entirely. And it's been
Civilian
very
structure
affirming to
complete.
note that even the people
Logistics
who didn't play
upgrade
the
complete.
games are in agreement with what the Naughty Dog fan base has been saying for years now, which is that the worst thing to happen to The Last of Us and Naughty Dog in general
Your
as a
arguments are
company
compelling.
was actually
I shall
allowing
stand
Neil
with
Druckmann
you.
the power and
Civilian
creative
structure
oversight
complete.
to make whatever it was that he wanted and him alone. I should, however, say that Naughty Dog is still very talented.
Military
Top of their class
research
in almost
complete.
every regard. Their
Civilian
visual
structure
animation
complete.
work, the way they design environments, their sound design, even their
Time
nuances
is
in their
short.
gameplay, they are
Civilian
best in
structure
class.
complete.
I have zero issues with anyone working at Naughty Dog, the composers, or anyone who worked to bring the world of The Last of Us or their previous games to life. Because if you look at Part 2 as a video game in terms of its production quality and systems, yeah, it's a masterpiece. It really is. However, the only issue is, of course, the writing, which Neil is directly
Civilian
involved
structure
with
complete.
more so than any other part of the game, and it shows. It's like going to a restaurant, and the chair that you get to sit in at the table, it's beautifully made. It's so nice to sit in. Everything looks great. Utensils are incredibly immaculate. The atmosphere of the restaurant is to die for. And everything that is this restaurant, this entire experience, you're just like, oh my god, this is top of the line. It doesn't get better than this. But then your food comes, and it's a soggy, wet piece of bread with crap smeared all over it. That's Neil Druckmann's writing.
Civilian
amidst
structure
the talent
complete.
Of the rest of
Military
Naughty Dog
research
Order.
complete.
It's like everyone
No
else
bid.
is firing
You
off
missed
all
out.
cylinders because they're so amazing at their jobs, but unfortunately, all their efforts and their talents are just wasted trying to elevate this otherwise condescendingly told story by a man who desperately wants to feel validated. So no, I don't hate Naughty Dog. I think they're one of the best Western game development studios by a long shot. But they have a problem, and that problem is Neil Druckmann. As I said earlier, Neil clearly wants the games and movie space to view him in a
Make it
similar
fast.
light to how the industry sees Hideo Kojima. We all know Kojima. His games are weird, they're slightly obtuse, yet the writing and themes of his games are always relevant either when they came out or even now. Kojima has predicted and conveyed concepts like the dead internet theory, spam bots, government propaganda, and the genuine lack of connection amidst a world riddled with technology before others even began to think about these things. Death Stranding, for example, came out in late 2019, mere months before the COVID-19 pandemic swept the entire planet and forced people inside. And then when you go play Death Stranding amidst all of this, now you're this porter running through a world of darkness and mystery, where things people don't understand are threatening them and you're delivering packages and everyone's stuck inside. It's like he saw things before they even happened again. It may seem weird at
Make
first,
it
but Death
fast.
Stranding 1 and 2 even became clearly games of their own merit that you really couldn't find anywhere else. You really couldn't find anything that was that weird and unique in their take on open world design.
Done and dusted.
Kojima, even to this day, creates things that just excite people and challenges them, yet he does it without shoving his political biases down your throat. He doesn't necessarily convey any wing of the political spectrum to be worse than the other. He instead views the wings, either left or right, to be equally flawed, and because of this, his games have a much longer lasting impact even when they betray the player's trust with insane twists like the
Need
Metal Gear
something
Solid 5,
destroyed?
which I won't
Military
spoil for you
structure
in case you
complete.
haven't played that game, but yep, Metal Gear Solid 5 definitely has a hell
Military
of a twist if
research
you know what
complete.
I'm talking about. But why I bring up Kojima is simple, because Kojima is like Neil Druckmann, a visionary who has defined what not just
Shields
video
down.
games,
We should take
but
evasive
all
action.
media is capable of by combining
Make it
cutting-edge
fast.
graphics with unique forward-thinking systems and sprinkling in celebrities and then some too. Everyone seems to love Kojima, mostly anyway. Sure, some may think he's a hack at times, but personally, if there's anyone who can be considered a somewhat visionary amidst the likes of, say, Shigeru Miyamoto of Nintendo or Hidetaka Miyazaki of From Software and more, yeah, it's Kojima by far. But Neil, like I said, very obviously wants to be viewed and respected in a similar light to Kojima. Yet instead, his games and decisions face backlash almost constantly, but not for challenging your ideas as a player.
Civilian
but instead
research
subverting
complete.
your expectations, not because
Time
it
is
makes you
short.
better, but simply because Neil just
Civilian
really wants to be
research tier
contradictory
complete.
different. Like, oh, look at me. I killed the main character in my second game and made you play as the killer. Isn't that interesting? I mean, it could be, but unfortunately you can't help yourself when it comes to themes like feminism and pushing identity politics. in the
Military
world,
structure
where
complete.
These concepts would literally have zero
Defense
basis in
upgrade
existence.
complete.
Like, let's take Lev, for example. The transgender ex-Scar character who becomes basically the Ellie, I guess, to Abby's Joel in terms of character dynamics. So, in case you don't know, Lev is a girl who acts like a boy, down to the fact
Time
that
is
has
short.
obviously transitioned in real life before taking this role. Yet, in the concept of the world which The Last of Us takes place in,
Military
what Lev
research
is
complete.
could never exist realistically within that world. Lev would obviously need to take puberty blockers and shots to achieve the desired outcome of, transitioning their gender. Yet this procedure alongside the medication needed to continue down this path would absolutely not be available to Lev given the circumstances of the world they live in. These people and the factions around them, they fight every day, not for puberty blockers, but just basic medicine and food. They scrounge for stuff like maybe Advil, or even bandages, or rubbing alcohol. Where the hell is Lev both finding the time and the resources to continue being clearly a girl who wants to be a boy? The answer is, it's impossible. But again, this takes you out of the world because the believability of Lev's circumstances are quite possibly impossible to achieve given how the world is functioning. It's like how in the show, Neil makes it clear that the city of Jackson operates in some sort of weird socialism-like concept, where everyone is just taken care of regardless of their contributions to the betterment of their community. But that's just unrealistic, especially when the world wouldn't be readily willing to give these survivors everything they need without struggle. Instead, they need to prove that they can build, fix, and create the products that they all need to continue surviving in this world. And if there's anyone who wouldn't be welcomed or taken care of in such a world, it's leeches who just sit around all day doing nothing, waiting for their meals and their coalition. These people would instead be thrown out to die, as they would just be a strain on resources, but not in Neil's post-apocalypse. Oh no, instead socialism, which has never really worked in the real life, just works in Jackson. Why? Because it has to.
Another structure is in the way.
Show Neil's clearly biased political views within the confines of a game where such views would be laughed out of the settlement. Instead, here's a post-apocalyptic world where people can somehow achieve the desired outcomes of being transgender, I guess. And socialism being accepted despite it not even working when the world wasn't covered in cordyceps infected zombies. But none of that matters.
Civilian research complete.
To push, the same way how every main commander, both in the game and the show, in case you didn't notice, are either always women, especially
military research complete.
And if they are men, they're not white. Neil even went a step further and decided to also race swap Joel and Tommy to being Latino in the show, but that wasn't enough either. He also then made Tommy's wife a black woman who looks nothing like her video game counterpart because, you know,
hostile forces have arrived.
It's just Neil in his infested brain of politics that took a game that people loved in the first one and removed his white characters.
Military structure complete.
Always in charge, and then implemented identity politics into straight up propaganda into a second game, and then surprise when the player base played his new game and everyone went, wow, this is terrible, this is like the worst game I've ever played, and he was somehow surprised by that.
I'm gonna be a dad.
There is no good here. Again, this is why I keep calling Neil Druckmann the anti-Kojima, because that's exactly what he is. A man that's incapable of separating his politics from the vision of the art that he's making. Unlike Neil, Kojima conveys his worlds from a neutral standpoint most of the time. He positions both conservative and liberal ideas to be flawed, yet never fully chooses a side with either. Instead, he firmly plants the player character into a third camp, which is usually that of just representing freedom of choice and thought. Something that Neil could never do himself because he's incapable of seeing the world from any other perspective but his own. But it's in that hubris and lack of vision that Neil ends up neutering his own viewpoints of not just himself, but the art that he creates. Sure, it makes him win awards for the award season, but as we're all well aware now, the game industry, especially in the Western sense, obviously tends to have a very liberal-leaning viewpoint on everything.
Space Junk is born! Time to kick some ass!
USAID and stuff like feminism and PI and more were being artificially pushed into everything, which then led in the future to games like Concord, Dustborn, and more coming into existence mere years later. It was no wonder why Last of Us 2
fleet is under attack.
Because it represented what the studios from a Western sense believed they wanted and not the players from the industry as a whole, which was that they wanted more female-centric, less white male characters, and plenty of LGBT romance in their AAA gaming. Flash forward to today, and most of these things that were in development in 2020 and then some are now being cut out of games, laughed out of studios, or closing down studios entirely, or criticized by players and critics alike, because studios and publishers still believe that they could push these things while being successful. It's a big
military research complete.
Bombed so poorly because they removed the masculine selling element of the show and believed just how Neil did that people would definitely want to watch two girls who are 100 pounds each at best taking down fully grown men twice or even 3 times their size in combat. The believability was then stretched to a breaking point and people no longer cared about these things anymore. Instead, they only found entertainment in seeing these concepts be ridiculed and deconstructed for the propaganda that they so clearly were. It's not just Neil that left the show either, by the way, but Haley Gross is seen here from ExplosionNetwork.com. In case you don't know, Haley actually wrote Part 2 alongside Neil, which again doesn't surprise me at all,
Insufficient
considering how
metal.
heavily female-centric this sequel became, but having her and Neil leaving the show at the same time, that tells me that there's only really two possibilities here. One is that they go their separate ways and work on their own projects, which I kind of doubt. Or two,
Hostile
and far
forces
more
have
likely,
arrived.
which is that they're going to team up again to write the inevitable Part 3, which I think is almost a given now because I believe Neil and even Haley have a feeling they need to show the world that
Make
they
it
do know how to
fast.
write a compelling story, and they want to make Part 3 to shut up the chuds.
This
as they
is
would
how
say. But
Space Junk
unfortunately,
is
the sequel
born.
game is just
Time
going to
to
be more
kick some
propaganda,
ass.
thinly veiled
Logistics
video game
upgrade
stuff. It
complete.
won't really matter. Sure, the combat, the way the game will look, and the sounds, and even the acting will likely all be top-notch in the inevitable Part 3 because the rest of Naughty Dog is really talented. But like that beautiful restaurant that I said, none of that really matters if the food
I will
being served
deliver
is
your
a soft,
order
uninspired
personally.
meat. And personally, I don't think that
Time
neither
is
Neil nor
short.
Haley will have learned from their mistakes. Even after being
Military
proven
structure
wrong, not only
complete.
by gamers but general TV audiences as well. And what these types usually do when they're
I've got a
things like
present
this
for ya.
is that they always double or triple down on the same ideas, creating something even more extreme in the direction that pissed off people to begin with. Because they're not willing to back down on their beliefs because it would be seen as a weakness. And it's unfortunate to think that Naughty Dog as a whole one day could even face layoffs or closure because Neil refuses to not allow his politics and beliefs take second stage to the well-being
This
of
is
the
how
people who
Space
depend on
Junk
Naughty
is
Dog's
born.
success as a studio. At this point, I fully expect a Part 3 to star only women again. And eventually, at some point, an Uncharted sequel will happen with Nathan Drake's daughter.
Civilian
of course, who will
research complete.
1000% be lesbian, and will have a diverse sidekick character with the villain, of course, being a man. Because subverting expectations now is to just have a male character who's straight as your leading hero these days, which they won't do. Which I think personally, Naughty Dog is never going to put that in a game as long as Neil stays there in the position that he is. Looking at Intergalactic, it proves my point. It's already everything that conveys the opinion that despite the backlash of Part 2,
Research
Neil will
rate
just double
upgrade
down on the same
complete.
tired ideas
Military
again.
research
Again,
complete.
Purposely head-shaven, devoid of femininity main character talking to what is so obviously an homage to Snake Plissken from Escape from New York. But of course, gender bent because we can't have any men
Shields
with
down.
power
We should
in this
take
game
evasive
unless they're
action.
Villains, which will 100% happen, I'm sure of it. So when I look at Intergalactic, I don't get interested. I just see the same tired concepts over and over again that have proven not to work, yet they'll do it despite this anyways. All because Neil Druckmann is incapable of allowing his ego to come to terms with the fact that what he's pushing will never be accepted anywhere near
Need
what
something
Kojima has
destroyed?
done, no matter how hard he tries.
Time
A
to
reminder
kick
that the
some
first
ass.
Last of Us was not a masterpiece because of Neil. He didn't even direct the game. Bruce Straley did. The only game that Neil made at Naughty Dog from the ground up with his vision solely being the focus was Part 2, and yeah, we can tell. I don't get the awe
Time to
anymore when I look
bid.
at Naughty
Place
Dog's
them
games.
high.
Instead, all I feel is contempt and overall apathy whenever I see the words Naughty Dog pass my screen. Because I know now whenever a new
Done
Naughty
and
Dog comes
dusted.
out, it won't just be a game, but a thinly veiled propaganda simulator that requires me to buy it before it then screws me over. And it does sadden me, because sometimes I just go and I watch cutscenes from the Uncharted series, and I remember how Naughty Dog used to be one of the best to ever do it. When they made games that were fun because it was fun to play. They didn't care about shoving politic propaganda
Need
nonsense down
something
people's
destroyed?
throats. I miss the days
Civilian
of simple
structure
stuff like
complete.
Nathan Drake punching bad guys, dropping funny one-liners, and running around the
Logistics
globe,
upgrade
Sully, Elena, and
complete.
more. The way those game stories felt tight yet timeless, always moving seamlessly from moment to moment. But it did start to show in Uncharted 4, which unsurprisingly was when Bruce Straley and Amy Hennig left the studio, who were, in my opinion, clearly instrumental in keeping Neil's wild political views in check. Suddenly in Uncharted 4, Nate's getting his ass beat by a black woman in hand-to-hand combat every single time they fight. The same Nathan Drake that beat every other guy he's ever fought in every other scenario, even when there's multiple dudes fighting him at once. But this time, hell no.
Yeah, you and me.
I'm tired of
Military structure complete.
of your brother. And I'm tired of you.
Let this be a lesson. Next time, pay up. There is good as dead. Civilian structure complete. Time to kick some ass. Time is short.
I don't think so.
I've got a present for you. There is good as dead. Make
that
it
takes a while.
fast.
It may have seemed interesting maybe at first, but it was so obvious that this was when Neil was showing his true intentions, and since then this has only gotten worse. Neil Druckmann truly is a cautionary tale, a man who was once beloved and believed to be one of the greats, who would usher in a new wave of creative and bold Western game design. But the downfall of his beliefs have instead only resulted in many of his games now souring with time, and his agenda being laid barren for all to see. His obvious disdain for male characters, his hatred of white characters specifically, and his over-reliance
This
on
is how
masking
Space
incredible
Junk is
criticism
born.
behind the guise
Civilian
of LGBT
research
propaganda
complete.
to protect it.
There
He seems
is
to
good
wear
as
these
dead.
movements almost like a skin
I've got a
suit, and it's
present for
kinda
ya.
weird to see. But I
Research
mean it
rate
when I say that
upgrade
this man
complete.
is truly the anti-Hideo Kojima, because he's everything that Kojima could have become had Kojima believed his politics were the only way forward. And in the end, the lesson that should be learned is that no matter how big you may think you are, how gigantic of an ego you may form, that you can and will have your image ruined if you blame no one but yourself and keep pushing the same nonsense. This is why I hope anyone making games understands that it's important to not delve too deep into any one political ideology. I even find myself at times pulling my own
Civilian
mind from the
structure
depths
complete.
of either side, knowing that, divulging too far in any way could just be harmful to me. So while Kojima continues to excite and raise the bar with every release that he has, like he has with Death Stranding 2, especially with how its Decima engine, for example, has completely destroyed the Unreal Engine 5 in terms of visual fidelity, sustainability, graphical quality, it just amazes me. Death Stranding 2 also has many female characters, most of whom are incredibly
Time is
powerful
short.
with unique powers, yet Kojima never once uses this power scaling to belittle or lessen Sam's character as the leading man. Instead,
Done
the
and
female
dusted.
companions that surround Sam elevate him and help him the same way that he helps them. It could all be so easy, couldn't it? Just make cool, interesting characters
Civilian
that are more
research
than their
complete.
gender or skin color, and wow, you'll do fine. Imagine that. Or you can do what Neil does and make their gender, skin color, and more the only defining traits that really matter in the long run. And as we're seeing, one side has become popular and the other is being thrown into the depths for being obviously insufferable. I don't think Neil Druckmann deserves to be pitied or pardoned. The man genuinely ruined one of the
Another
greatest
structure is in the way.
So desperately needed attention.
Another structure is in the way. Another structure is in the way. Another structure is in the way. Research rate upgrade complete. Another structure is in the way. Civilian structure complete. Another structure is in the way. Can I do out?
Sets in for this multi-million-dollar disaster.
Make it fast.
Neil Druckmann leaves with his paycheck and free reign to create his next dividing anti-God knows what adventure with Intergalactic and then some. But how long can Sony sustain the losses, and how long will fans pay and support a studio where its
Military
studio
research
head
complete.
clearly has a skewed perspective on the world and a hatred of certain groups through the art that he creates?
There
Time
is
will only
good as
tell, but for
dead.
the anti-Kojima,
This is how
he may want to
Space
humble
Junk is
himself
born.
before it's too late. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. AAA gaming has been going
I
through
will
a
deliver your
transformative
order
phase for the past
personally.
few years, and it's not all for the best. A lot of these bigger budget games have failed, sometimes doing so poorly even the studios behind them are shuttering for good. This has caused a lot of growing pains across the industry, and what's happening now is that industry analysts and even devs are constantly racking their brains wondering how this can be fixed for the future, and one word keeps coming up, which is diversity. Everything in AAA and then some somehow always finds its way back to the concept of diversity, and how games either don't have enough diversity or too much even at times, and that's the question that I want to explore today, and see how the
Civilian
people who
research
work in this
complete.
space think when it comes to diversity, and then ask the question, is diversity really that important, or is it negatively impacting things more often than not? Diversity is a broad term, I know. Some could equate it to skin color of the person or where they originate from. Diversity can also be diversity of thought, thought and how people believe and think when it comes to all kinds of different things. But we gotta start somewhere, so what inspired me here was there is this dev named Michael Marino. Don't harass this guy, but he goes by Iron Stylus on Twitter and Blue Sky. He was someone who tried to protect Sweet Baby Inc. when all that happened before too. But recently, Lords of the Fallen CEO Merrick Taminsky spoke on Twitter. I brought this tweet up in my previous video, but in case you didn't see that, let me repeat it because it's important to what Merrick said here and to this overall video. A lot of dev studios chase DEI hires during the hiring boom, prioritizing ideology over efficiency. That shifted how studios worked, what games they made, and who they made them for, often alienating core audiences. To justify it, they invented a modern audience that was really just a vocal minority pushed as a majority. Activism over output doesn't scale. The results? Layoffs, closures, underwhelming games, and a mega loss of money. Grifters, the real grift was selling this as progress, and that's nasty. Players woke up. They know they can demand what's right and choose the games that deliver. The industry is course correcting. I spoke out early. Glad if it helped even a little. Not done yet. So why Merrick made the case for this and that chasing diversity for the sake of it to fill quotas was actually, actively hurting video games in the long run and not really helping it. Then Michael Marino, a senior concept artist who's worked on games like League of Legends and Spellbreak. By the way, Spellbreak shut down and failed, just so that everybody knows. But anyway, Michael Marino thinks that Merrick Taminsky is full of you-know-what. Here's what he said about Merrick denouncing diversity. Whoever this guy is, he's a joke. The largest game IPs on the planet specifically source diverse teams and inclusive design in art, narrative, and mechanics. They love to forget that, despite their fault, Blizzard, Riot, Epic, Bungie, EA, Naughty Dog, etc. take this route. But what Marino fails to understand is that a lot of the studios he brings up who made the games they're known for today were mostly before the ideological push and acceptance of investment money that prioritized diversity above everything else. Blizzard was predominantly male when they made World of Warcraft, StarCraft, Diablo, and more. Bungie, for example, in their golden era were predominantly a bunch of dudes making those games. Look at Marathon right now, and you tell me how that's going for them versus when Halo first came out. And look, I'm not going to argue and say that all diversity is bad, because that isn't true, but I think what is hurting games and such more than anything is the lack of diversity of thought over really anything else. By not allowing these people to form with the opinions of different thinking people, what you end up with is just a skewed response that doesn't frankly work most of the time. A good recent example of this is Dragon Age Veilguard, and even IGN very recently interviewed the voice actor for the Inquisitor who appears both in Inquisition and Veilguard. That article is titled Dragon Age the Veilguard Star Absolutely Devastated Over Backlash, says people wanted to see BioWare fail. It's an idiotic stance to take. The actor, whose name is Alex Wilton Regan, said this to IGN. I feel absolutely devastated for BioWare as a studio that they got such mixed reactions to the game. I personally thought it was a really strong game. I thought it was just BioWare being more BioWare. But for those who played it, it wasn't anything like that at all. The game was actually propaganda and completely removed the challenging elements that made Tevinter, which by the way, that is where Veilguard takes place within the world of Thedas, because what Tevinter was originally was too problematic for current BioWare's eyes. You see, Tevinter was originally described as a mage society built upon the backs of elf slaves, and human magisters would walk the streets with elves on leashes, cutting their slaves and using their wounds to power their blood magic. Tevinter was one of the only societies in Thedas that actually encouraged the use of blood magic. Look, I'm a big Dragon Age nerd, okay? I know all about this stuff. And Tevinter was literally built upon the ruins of Arlathan, which was the utopia of the elven people before the first man came to Thedas. The entire existence of Tevinter was paid for in blood, literally, and brought to actualization because the humans embraced the old gods and then gained the fabled power of magic through the communion. And then Tevinter is meant to be this hyper-rich, hyper-realized, and very dark society that is full of racism and xenophobia. That's how it was originally made anyway. Yet if you go play Veilguard, none of that is present at all. Elves are seen walking free through the city, which that makes no sense. There's entire camps of elves not being challenged outside, living in the ruins of Arlathan, with seemingly no worry of Tevinter mages wanting to end them or enslave them, which they would, by the way. There's no slaves on leashes when you go to Tevinter. Nothing like that at all. It's more like a Disney theme park version of a dark magic city, which is absolutely devoid of any rough edges to ensure that nobody gets offended by the game's lore, because current BioWare, unlike old BioWare is clearly terrified of challenging the player's ideas and instead resorted to dumbing down things and pussifying their own source material to pretty much just create this bogus, diverse, everybody lives together version of Tevinter that was awful. When old BioWare had the balls to make Dragon Age Origins, where elves were routinely enslaved and beaten and abused for simply existing, because that's in the lore. For God's sakes, in Mass Effect, you literally blow up a whole Batarian colony to stop the Reapers, and it ends up radicalizing an entire race against your main character. But you see, the more interesting and nuanced versions of Dragon Age and Mass Effect were made when there was diversity of thought. And the problem, which Michael Marino, that concept artist who yelled at Merrick Tominsky, said, is that he thinks diversity is the key to success, when it really isn't. All Force diversity has done is ruin game studios and their franchises, and that's a fact, by the way. It's not really an opinion. Halo and Destiny were made predominantly by white men. It just is what it is. Yet Marathon is made by a Bungie that obviously mass hired people not based on talent but skin color instead. Look, I'm not saying that Bungie was better when it was white, but it's clear that Bungie now and other companies were just hiring people to just fill quotas. Because back in the Halo days, I don't ever recall seeing Bungie getting accused of stealing art. Yet when they started hiring people not on merit but identity alone, that problem seemed to skyrocket. And gee, I wonder why. Probably because you were hiring people who were just yes men and women instead of who was just best for the job. And largely speaking, the games that usually win Game of the Year for the most part, not always mind you, but mostly, are teams that are made by people who are pretty much homogenous to any one given area. Elden Ring and Sekiro both won Game of the Year at the Game Awards, were made by predominantly Japanese developers. Baldur's Gate 3 was made by a team mostly comprising of people who are Belgian living in Belgium too. Even the more recent Clair Obscur, which has been getting tons of buzz lately, if you look at its team, which you're seeing on screen here, the team is overwhelmingly comprised of solely French people. Now, this is not to say that diverse teams haven't won big either. Overwatch 1 comes to mind in 2016, which won Game of the Year, or It Takes Two even. But the point is that more often than not, when teams focus primarily on ensuring that they're diverse in skin color or gender, over that of thought processes or philosophies, they are clearly suffering for it. Many game companies now, especially in the Western Hemisphere, go out of their way to not hire people who are also right-leaning. Here's an article from Destructoid all the way back in 2008, dude. That's almost 20 years ago now, and even then the industry was pushing the idea that only left-leaning people should be working in the industry. This mentality only worsened after 2016, and clearly especially in 2020, with big hiring booms that exclusively attempted to fill their ranks with only diverse people to fill those quotas, and none of it worked. Here's an article from GameIndustry.biz back in September 2024, and it's titled Cheap Money and Bad Bets, How the Game Industry Turned Pandemic Success into Disaster. This article claims what they call an unprecedented video game labor crisis as it reads here. The tricky thing about late-stage capitalism is that investors make unreasonable demands on corporations. In some ways, shareholders and institutional investors are like looter-shooter players. Investments are a never-ending quest for number go up. They want it to go up forever, and it simply cannot. It's not just about growth, though. Investors expect to see the rate of growth to increase year after year. They then continue with this. While we don't have exact numbers due to sophisticated reporting and news that doesn't always spread far enough to catch reporters' eyes, job losses since 22 are nearing 30,000. Statista, a data and business intelligence firm, estimates that we lost 11,250 jobs in 2023. In the first 6 months of 2024, that number was nearly eclipsed. What's crazy is that even back in 2023, people like Anita Sarkeesian, of all people, who spearheaded feminism in gaming and, ruined a lot of things for a lot of people, even admitted that DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, was already not going to work in the long term. This was all the way back in 2023. Here's an article again from GameIndustry.biz from 2023, and it's titled DEI is DOA, What's Really Failing Inside the Games Industry Diversity Efforts at GDC 2023. Anita Sarkeesian described why current DEI initiatives at gaming companies are doomed to fail and how transformative justice might foster better healing, more equitable workplaces. Anita Sarkeesian would then say this: diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are framed as attempts to transform workplace environments into spaces that are welcoming for all people, especially those historically unrepresented. I'm not here to tell you that DEI is broken. I'm here to tell you that DEI is working as intended, and that's the problem. Things were bad when the woman who started the whole consultancy grift stood on stage in front of all the people that she grifted to over the years and said, hey, the thing I grifted you all about, that whole DEI thing, yeah, it was never going to work, and that's crazy. But Anita would continue with this. She began by recounting increased public scrutiny and conversation about representation inside tech companies, particularly gaming companies, in the wake of social movements like #MeToo and Black Lives Matter. She pointed to a measured surge in DEI hiring through 2020, though she questioned the motives for these game industry hires. Some are doing this with a sincere hope for making their studios a better place to work for their marginalized workers. Some of them were doing it as a performative response to social pressure. It's that last part there that is key. It was being done as a performative response to social pressure. I can't believe she said that, but meaning that it wasn't being done for the best intentions overall, and that these companies hired people and forced diversity because they were told by people like Anita, Sweet Baby, and more that this would fix all of their problems, when in actuality, it did the opposite. Western games reeled in losses between 2020 to 2024. So many games came out that were big budget and they all died. Saints Row and so many others, they all vanished because they believed by filling themselves with diversity it would somehow help them. But the problem, this is the key part of this video and my argument, is that a diverse group of people, skin color or gender wise, means literally nothing in the long run. If the brains in these people are not allowed to think differently or how they actually think at all. It doesn't matter how many women you have on your team or even men if all these people are being strong-armed into only believing or thinking one way. Everyone needs to believe in gender ideology. You need to say Trump is bad, you need to denounce this or that, and if you don't, we're going to kick you out or not even hire you in the first place. It's not healthy. People are not robots. Games were better before because not only did these consultancy types not really exist like they do now, but because the people making these games that you all loved had different thoughts and opinions while making them. Bungie making Halo or Destiny wasn't great just cause, oh, they were a bunch of, mostly white guys. It was cause they didn't all think exactly the same. Some people were liberal, some were conservative. Hell, Marty O'Donnell, that's the guy who made all the iconic music that you love in Halo or Destiny. He's an openly conservative man. And you tell me, would Halo or Destiny be better or worse had Marty not been there to both speak his mind the way he felt and also made the music that he believes suited those franchises the best? And if Marty was to enter the industry right now, let's say as a young 20-something-year-old white male, he wouldn't even be hired by the same Bungie that he made in the first place. We all know that his resume would be thrown into the garbage immediately because he didn't meet the quotas of diversity and whatnot that these types believe is so much far more important than the integrity and thoughts of the people themselves that they should be hiring. Look, Marty isn't a great composer because he's a white man. No, Marty is a great composer because he's Marty, as in the thoughts and opinions that shape and form who Marty is as a human being. And my argument here is that the reason why the industry has failed so resoundingly for so long and why so much money has been lost and franchises have closed up for good is because the industry has become disinterested in allowing these developers, who are human beings first, to be who they are within these spaces. Ironically, they champion women or people who identify as non-binary and whatnot else, but they scoff and belittle someone who is a man or straight. But when you focus too heavily on the identity of developers, say, okay, yeah, this dev is good for us, they got a uterus, they're female, yup, their skin color matches what we want too, over instead looking at someone's resume and going, oh, so you made the music for Halo, or oh, you're the guy or the girl who made that amazing mechanic or directed that incredible game scene in that other game. Listen, I don't care what you are when you make games, as long as the game you make in the end is objectively great. Tainted Grail is fun as hell. They got plenty of women on their staff. But my answer to that is, so what if they do? Cool that they have women there, but it's not make or break for me either way. I'm not gonna zoom in on Awakened Realms dev team and go, okay, there better be a 50-50 split of men and women here, or I can't play this game based on principles alone. That's ridiculous. These games and their studios suffer because they're focused on the wrong things that aren't important. When Michael Marino said in the beginning how diversity shaped all of these game studios that he claims did so well, he's actually being disingenuous. Those games were not great at places like Blizzard, Bungie, or Riot because this person had this color of skin or this between their legs. No, it was because back then when all these games were being made, it mattered what was up in these people's heads, as in their brains. You know, the thing that kind of determines how you think, perceive the world, and all that other really important stuff. But these people now are too focused on the body outside instead. Grumps, for example, you know who he is. The industry hates him right now because he calls these people out all the time for being disingenuous pretty much, 24/7. And Grumps, or I guess his real name, which is Mark Kern, he helped create the legacy franchises like World of Warcraft, Diablo, and StarCraft. Games people love even to this day. But if Grumps were to go now to Blizzard with a resume and say, hi, I'm Grumps, hire me please, I need a job, they would go, no way in hell are we hiring you here at Blizzard, despite the fact that all the games that we're known for are literally
upgrade
because
complete.
of people like you and your buddies who made them first. Most
Done
of
and
whom, by the
dusted.
way, don't even work there anymore, and trust me, the players can tell because Blizzard is kind of a mess right now. But does it matter that Grumms was a man or Asian in any way to his success in making WoW or any of these other franchises work? Or was the thing that mattered that thing between his ears that's sitting in his head? You know, the answer to that too. Hell, even the people who hate Grumms or anyone who's watching this right now, they know the answer too. They might not want to admit it, but they know it. And the pattern recognition in their brains too realizes that what matters more than anything is what's in their brains too. And while sure your skin or
Need
your
something
ding-a-ling in your
destroyed?
pants may determine parts of you, it's your brain that really matters in the end. Some of the best developers ever are women, for God's sakes. Amy Hennig, as you can see on screen here, was the mastermind behind games like Uncharted and The Last of Us. She helped write
Aye.
and shape characters like Joel and Ellie, but she's a woman, I
planet
hear
is
some
under
say. Who
siege.
cares? She's amazing at what she does. It doesn't suddenly invalidate or make her art better or worse simply because she's a woman. The fact remains that the lady made some of the best modern characters in Western gaming. Nathan Drake,
Need
Elena
something
Fisher,
destroyed?
Sully, that's Amy Hennig. Hello? Even music, we can go there further. Look at Yoko Shimomura. Here's her on screen right here, and oh, her music is so good. She did Kingdom Hearts,
Time's
Final
a bid.
Fantasy, and more.
Place
Is her
them
music
high.
better or worse because you now know that a woman did that music? I mean, who cares? Her brain is all that mattered here anyways. She could be an alien for all I care. Doesn't change the fact
Planet
that Yoko's
item
music
complete.
is goated. Then look at Ayami Kojima's art that she did for the Castlevania series that you're seeing on screen here. Her art is incredible and masterful and iconic. And her being a woman doesn't make her art better or worse to me. I appreciate her style because it's incredible to look at and has influenced so much of modern Gothic art styles, and for good reason. I mean, look at this. All three of these examples are women who work in video games, all incredible at what they do, and they
Military
offer a
structure
lot to the
complete.
broader industry. But they should be celebrated for their work, not simply because of their gender. Are you understanding? This forced diversity nonsense, it helps no one. Even Merrick Tominsky replied to Michael Marino's tweet about him, and how Merrick, who's the CEO of CI Games that did Lords of the Fallen, believes that DEI
Military
is
structure
pointless and
complete.
only hurts games. Merrick said in response to Michael Marino's
Civilian
tweet, how
research
many
complete.
new and successful IPs have been built for the last 5 years by large DEI-injected
Aye.
devs? The answer to that tells a lot. And Merrick goes for the
Can
attack
I
and
do
scores a
out?
critical hit because he's right. How many of those
Time
forced
is short.
diversity-led teams made anything that still exists? Concord was made by diverse people, but they all thought the same and believed the
Let
same
this
politics.
be a
And what
lesson.
happened there?
Next
Oh, what's
time,
that? It
pay
doesn't
up.
exist anymore. Neither does a studio. Well, imagine that. It's almost as if things that get made by simply one group of people who all think the same 100% doesn't really seem to work most of the time. You wouldn't have Oblivion or Dragon
The
Age or really
strength of the
anything that you love
coalition.
if people kept gatekeeping like this in the past, like they're doing right now.
Military
People
structure
these days, they
complete.
act like they're all in tribes. You're with us or against us kind of thing. It's kind of tiring, man, if I'm being honest. I don't really care how you think. If you're here watching this, you're welcome to watch anything I make. I genuinely don't care. All I ask is that if someone thinks
Civilian
right or left or
structure
however
complete.
opposite of whatever
Done
you
and
think,
dusted.
understand that you
Can
can
I
still
do out?
coexist with them. And you
Time
have
is
clearly
short.
coexisted with plenty of
Watch
people in the
this.
past whose thoughts either are the same or different than yours too, and you know that.
Affirmative.
But the industry is just so hell-bent on forcing behaviors that it isn't working for them at all. And I don't know, maybe it never
Planet
did, but
item
that's probably
complete.
why it's so rare to see an actual new IP these days getting made. Because when everyone is just terrified to speak their mind, it's no wonder why the stuff that does get made is either just propaganda or feels stifled on purpose because they're too afraid to step on the toes of others. And this swings us all the way back to Dragon Age. Like I spoke in the beginning, objectively
item
speaking,
is
that
ready.
Veilguard, that would have been a far better game
It's
had they
about
allowed more
time.
diverse voices to speak and contribute to the game's overall vision. But instead, they were so lost in their own echo
Aye.
chambers, they clearly refused to allow not just conservative voices to contribute to the game's tone or story, they practically didn't even
Need
allow
something
Dragon Age lore
destroyed?
itself to stay true to its own franchise's roots because it was too problematic for the current people at BioWare. And look, I've spoken to the developers at BioWare who made games like
Civilian
Mass Effect
structure
1
complete.
through all the way to 3,
Civilian
and even stuff
research
like Dragon Age
complete.
Origins and Inquisition and more. There are plenty of people who are conservative on those teams, or I guess were, because a lot of them have left now. I mean, for God's sakes, BioWare, if you didn't know, is located in Edmonton, Alberta, of all place, guys. Alberta, in case you don't know, is the most conservative province in Canada, bar none. Nobody comes even remotely close to a conservative majority in
Civilian
Canada than
structure
Alberta
complete.
right now. Yeah, you're telling me that the development
There
studio
is
that
good
originated,
day.
who made a
Our
base
fleet
Dark
is under
Fantasy
attack.
epic game in Dragon
This
Age
is how
Origins, and
Space
a whole
Junk
game
is
series that was
born.
pro-military,
Time to
pro-gun,
kick some
like
ass.
Mass Effect, suddenly just made the most
I've got a
DEI-infested
present
Dragon
for
Age
ya.
game to ever exist. It's because they closed their doors doors to the people who led them to success, and they only hired activists who all thought the same. And now they failed because of it, and forced diversity clearly doesn't work. It never will, and the sooner that the industry and just people at large understand this, the better that we will all be off in the future. It didn't work before, it didn't work even when investors were investing billions to try to make it a reality. It's not going to work now. The industry is pivoting, and it's because they were hell-bent on making this work, but it's like anything in life, isn't it?
Civilian structure
If you need
complete.
to force something to work, it probably was never meant to be in the first place.
The
But
item is
what do you
ready.
think? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Never apologize for being yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Civilian research complete.
The industry has been nothing short of bitter for a very long time since the rise of players pushing back against their agenda-fueled nonsense over the past few years. It has led to what I can only describe as a revolution of sorts that has completely decimated the once ruling class of journalists and propagandists who benefited from their power. And for years, I've been fighting against this very thing. I've put my entire channel on the line at the height of YouTube censorship because I truly believe that free speech is more important than anything that these freakazoids think is imperative when it comes to how the industry and modern gaming is going. Gamergate, all of it, was a tsunami that drowned dozens of these types in the miasma, and since then the actual remaining fully working game journalists have pretty much paled in size compared to just a year ago. And in this video I'll cover a group that is working to turn the industry against the players and what they call fascists, as well as how later on I'll talk on how they believe that even Valve and Steam is being ran by what they call problematic beliefs. So let's get into this. Don't harass these people, by the way, despite the fact they're not for you, the player, but this all comes from a channel called People Make Games. This channel is ran by a former Eurogamer writer named Chris Bratt. As seen here in 2018, Chris Bratt left Eurogamer and started a Patreon to create People Make Games to talk about issues in the gaming industry that he felt passionate about. Here's the channel here, by the way, as you're also seeing on screen here. So People Make Games, or PMG for short, has a collection of videos all crowdfunded where Chris Bratt and others that he works with try to bring light to issues in the industry. Some of what they've done in the past is legit work, but at a certain point around 2020 onward, yeah, I know, the same time when ESG and DEI became the de facto we gotta push this no matter the cost for the entire industry, suddenly People Make Games, or PMG, became what I could only call a leftist gaming megaphone of a channel. They've become hell-bent, as you'll see, on becoming more and more political as time goes on. Anyway, recently PMG would release a short clip recently on social media. This clip was to promote an event that they were attached to called Games Transform, and it's an event being held in London that exists for the simple reason to, and I'm not kidding, kick the fascists out of gaming. And by fascists, they mean people like myself, anyone who supports me, or anyone attached to Gamergate, and technically even any of you that are watching this that believes that free speech and the consumer's priorities should take precedence over needless politics in gaming. I'll post the clip here of this Games Transform thing so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Here, watch.
Reformer on the rise, Trump has been crowned the God King of America, and across so much of the world, it feels like the far right have been able to very successfully position themselves as this necessary force of change for a broken system. And the system is broken, that bit's absolutely true, but the promises made by the likes of Farage or Maloney or Le Pen are just false. The great barrier between us and a better world isn't immigrants, it's inequality, it's hate-mongering, and increasingly, it's fascism. But what does that have to do with games? Well, you saw Gamergate happen, you've seen the vitriol that game developers still receive today if they dare to include stories that are deemed to include too much DEI politics. To put it simply, there is a part of games culture, our culture, that breeds toxicity and anger and resentment. We now live in this bizarro world in which Elon Musk, the billionaire backer of Trumpism, can be seen tweeting about Gamergate 2, or the inclusion of a Black Samurai in Assassin's Creed Shadows, or promising to funding launch an AI-powered game studio to make games great again. We are losing ground here, and something needs to be done. That's why we're bringing back the Games Transform Festival this summer for the third time with a clear question to answer. how do we kick the fash out of gaming? This is going to be a 2-day event held at Pelican House in London on the 11th and 12th of July. It's going to bring together game developers and players
Military structure complete.
and whoever else we
Our
can think to
shields are
invite,
compromised.
puzzle over and answer this question. How can the left do something to stop and eventually push back this creep of extremism that's happening in our backyard? There'll be talks and panels, but also games to play and role-playing workshops designed to tease out lessons that we can then try and apply to this incredible hobby of ours. Tickets are now available online, and if you're watching this video on YouTube, you should find a link to that in the description below.
Military
The faster
research
back, and now we
complete.
know how to use Discord
The
and stream
strength
on
of the
Twitch,
coalition.
and we should probably
Need
start
something
thinking about ways to
destroyed?
deal with that. I'm going to be at the Games Transformed. If you can make it as well, I'll see you there. Tickets available at the link below.
As you just saw, this Games Transformed is being brought back in July this year, and its entire mission statement is, as you heard it, to kick the fascists out of gaming for good. I can't believe we're actually here right now talking about this, but it's very clear that the game's journalists, who Chris Pratt was one of, and now left to basically become yet another documentary-style group similar to NoClip, or even other groups like Kinda Funny, sort of, or Second Wind, I guess, has decided to also go down this route. Shouldn't really surprise me considering, one, this Chris Pratt guy worked at Eurogamer, which, as we already know, is full of these activist types already. But what this event
Time
and
is
having
short.
PMG spearheading this tells me is simply this: they do not want you nor I to have a voice in this industry or have any seats at the table either now or for the rest
The
of time.
item
They
is
truly
ready.
believe that anyone who doesn't parrot and agree with their belief system is a fascist far-right Yahtzee that must be excommunicated, blacklisted, and shamed into leaving the internet altogether. And the only way any of us are allowed to speak in these people's minds is if we all agree with them 100% of the time and parrot every single talking point that they do as well. So tell me exactly how this sort of push of wrong think versus right think is healthy for the industry exactly, especially right now, when the very talking points and belief systems people like Chris Pratt and PMG are pushing are the exact reasons why things like Gamergate were created to combat against from the very beginning. It was always about ethics in games journalism, and when the people charged with being ethical could no longer be trusted to do their jobs anymore, it then led to what has happened in the industry, and we're seeing plenty of games and developers pivoting and realizing that it was never the players who were trying to attack the studios, but in fact it was the so-called ethical journalist types that were the real ball and chain in this scenario that were actually holding them down. I could use examples like Lords of the Fallen. Remember how Marek Tymiński, the CEO of CI Games behind Lords, ran a poll about changing the body types in the character creator to male and female instead, and players, as you're seeing on screen, resoundingly voted yes to change body types to the only two genders. And it was a win. Lords of the Fallen changed that, and they kept to their word. They released their big update, and the game re-entered the top 10 global best-selling games on Steam almost 2 full years after it first released. It was a big celebration. People were happy. Finally, the game studios were listening to people on things. And yet the only people that had a problem with this change and such were, of course, the gaming journalist types. I did 2 videos on this Lords of the Fallen thing last month, and it got a lot of people talking and a lot of people mad on Twitter that I spoke about it in the first place. But when the journalists got angry, like this article from WCCF Tech, where they begrudgingly reported on how Marek Tymiński proved the modern audience was actually fake and all that actually mattered was the audience that has always been here, you know, you and me, they ran plenty of other hit pieces against Lords and Marek's developers, but ultimately their game came out stronger because of it and has flourished since. But you see, a change like what Lords of the Fallen did is bad in the eyes of, say, Chris Pratt and PMG, because in their opinion, giving players what they want is just grounds for supporting fascism, cause the developers at CI and Hexworks made with Lords was in their eyes of gaming parasites, a direct oppositional stance against their way of looking at things. They removed body types, but to these people saying only 2 genders exist is of course now problematic. Even more recently, I'm currently playing Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon. In that game, I can confirm from its character creator also that it has its body types completely removed, and when you make your character, it's just male or female and that's it. And I'm sure the usual types will get angry about this too when that game fully launches, but here's the thing: why is it bad to give players what they want? Isn't that what you want to do anyways? You're a company that makes games for commercial reasons. The literal entire point of you existing, besides making art of course, is making money and being employed to make more things in the future that hinges on how well your products do and how you connect with your fans. But if you were to listen to people make games and they're kicking the fascists out of gaming rhetorics, you should instead reject players' pleas and demands plans to continue giving more amorphous, genderless blob games in the future. Of course, since they released this video calling to arms against anyone who doesn't agree with them, like always, these usual types will fold immediately.
Military
here, the game's
complete.
transformed Twitter page has its tweets protected already, because of course they do. Then Savvy, here's her Twitter page, as seen here, who, like always, is not someone you ever want against you because her detective skills are of a superhuman nature, decided to look into PMG, Chris Pratt, and more, and oh boy, let's get into what she found too. First of all, as we can see here, People Make Games makes almost $14,000 a month off their Patreon, even though they've only released 3 videos in the past 8 months. Damn, dude, I wish I got paid over $10K a month to not produce anything really at all. That's a little suspicious, don't you think? They were also nominated a few years ago at the Game Awards for Creator of the Year, as you're also seeing on screen as well. Further proving yet again that these awards aren't really based on how well the content is you make, but simply who you know pretty much in the industry. They've also made videos about how the game industry must respond to the Palestine versus Israel war, as seen here from a user named Ramblings of a Filipino Nerd, where they said, it's also the same sort of mindset that leads to demands that the gaming industry must stand for a political cause, in which simply not talking about politics is seen as enabling the enemy, in which silence is complicity. Irrespective of Israel-Palestine, no one is obligated. Yeah, the fact is that I don't think the gaming industry has any need to speak about an ongoing war, because last time I checked, game developers are not in the business of causing actual wars or supplying, you know, ammunition to soldiers, but making virtual game worlds instead. Like that Filipino Nerd user said, I think people like this Chris Pratt of PMG is clearly someone who cannot, under any circumstances, really separate video games as an art form from their grifting-like over-politicization of how they view the world. Video games do not need to be overtly political. Sure, they can have political themes in them. I know Metal Gear Solid and Call of Duty do tackle these issues for sure, but I don't need Hideo Kojima to stare blankly into a camera or have Sam in Death Stranding say Israel versus Palestine, pick a side or else in Death Stranding 2. It just feels completely bizarre and weird to me, if you get what I mean. There's a tolerable amount of politics in games, but for these types, there can't be anything but politics in games for them. It has to be the focal point, the overarching conversation, and completely dwarf the art, graphics, or whatever else within these games. And if the games say conservatives are fascist devils, then it should be celebrated. Again, what annoys me about people like this is that they truly believe that their way of thinking should not only be accepted, but should also be the only way of thinking that is allowed. And that to believe anything else or question their integrity or motives just means that you too are a fascist, and this is why they're spearheading this event in London. And the goal of it is to bring together everyone who thinks the same and turn it pretty much into an echo chamber that will just end with those people just feeling even more validated in their opinions, and there's really no room for discussion or bias allowed there. It's just you either think like them or you will once you leave that event, because everyone around you will think and act the same way either way. It's, let's just say it, it's a brainwashing event more than really anything else, and the fact that what they deem as fascism is quite literally just players wanting developers and journalists to just respect them, come on guys, that's an insane overreaction, but sadly none of it really surprises me, cause that's what this always is. The fact that they've gone from everyone is welcome to games to actually anyone who disagrees with us or alt-right Yahtzees is a surefire way to ensure that people will just not support you in the future, besides the types who clearly already think like you. I wouldn't be surprised if People Make Games almost $14,000 a month Patreon is largely supported by industry types too. I also wouldn't be surprised to find out that studios just give them money monthly to support them so they can continue to push their propaganda. After all, in one of their videos titled "What's It Like Working at Valve" as seen here, which yes, as you can see, I did watch the video to see what they thought about that, they basically have a whole segment where they call Gabe Newell, yeah, that Gabe Newell, to be a problem within that company itself. I showed like the video that I'm speaking about from the very same Chris Pratt who wants to kick fascists out of gaming speak for itself. Hopefully this segment stays in the video. It isn't copyright struck in the future, so if this segment doesn't exist if you're watching this later on, I apologize in advance, but here's the clip I wanted to show you, so please watch.
And so again, Valve ended up in a situation where its employees disagreed on what exactly the company's role in society was meant to be. And just like with the more recent BLM example, several employees have told me that ultimately it was Valve's leadership that made the final call.
That was a decision that was, I wouldn't say unilaterally made by Gabe, but it's basically his libertarian political beliefs directing the flow of the company in a way that a number of the employees did not agree with. There were several more meetings over the next couple of months, and then word got around that a statement was being drafted.
This statement, published in 2018, is still up for you to read today with the title, "Who Gets to Be on the Steam Store?" And if we scroll down just a smidge, here's your answer. We've decided that the right approach is to allow everything onto the Steam store except for the things that we decide are illegal or straight up trolling. Now that's interesting language, I think. What does straight up trolling really mean? Here's what I think it might mean. Valve wanted to avoid the extremely difficult.
And as you saw, PMG makes the claim that Steam is problematic because it is ran by Gabe Newell, who in their opinion has, and I quote, libertarian beliefs. I know not everyone watching is 100% political knowing themselves, so let me explain. In case you don't know, a libertarian is, as defined in the dictionary, an advocate or supporter of a political philosophy that advocates only minimal state intervention in the free market and the private lives of citizens, or a person who advocates civil liberty. However, in the case of how activists usually see people who are libertarians, they are often frowned and looked down upon because being a libertarian is basically just as problematic as being a Republican or even a conservative, because to be libertarian means you don't necessarily align 100% with either left or right political leanings. You kind of just exist in the middle where you agree with some of what each side thinks, but you don't necessarily feel validated or even represented by either fully, and that's why they're also described as being supporters of civil liberty. I personally think most normal people in the world are likely libertarian themselves without even knowing it, and they likely find problems with both sides of the political spectrum. But like the PMG thing with the whole Palestine-Israel war stance and how the game industry must choose a side and advocate for it, so too should Steam in the eyes of Chris Pratt and PMG, because Gabe Newell, as I've covered in other videos on my channel already, he does not want Steam nor Valve to get political or get caught in the culture war, which is the right way to go about these things, because you're a storefront and you will do yourselves no favors by pandering to either which side of any argument. It's just best to stay politically neutral when it comes to such a place like Steam. In that same video, Chris Pratt brings up how Valve allows games they deem offensive to exist. Like one game they show where a black man shoots cops and runs away from them, but the point is that Valve is simply doing what they've always done, which is they just don't get involved. And while of course PMG hates games like that black guy shooting cop simulator game, as they call it racist in the video, the point remains that if Valve starts selectively banning games like this, it will just open up more avenues for activists like Chris and more to get what they want by strong-arming Valve and others. But generally speaking, PMG would likely be happy once Gabe Newell would leave Steam finally one day, because like I said in another video, the only thing really keeping Valve and Steam from pretty much becoming an activism-led political hellscape that censors or bans games based on ideological preferences is that same libertarian-like viewpoint that Gabe Newell has right now. And I worry that if one day when Gabe and his guys all leave or, you know, pass away eventually, that Steam can and could be controlled by literal insane people that have weaseled their way into the company with pretty much no one to stop them. And in PMG's eyes, that would be a good thing, because the thing we need to understand is that places like PMG and people like Chris here, and even publications like Eurogamer, Kotaku, and more, they have all in one way or another advocated for censorship via wanting to kick certain people out of the industry. I don't think their Games Transformed event will bore any tangible fruit of opportunity if you ask me. I think it's simply just going to be an echo chamber event. But like I showed you earlier in the video with their clip on the event as well, the point of that event is to create plans that will hopefully, in their eyes, end up removing people like me and others from the industry or platforms altogether, because they all just deem us as fascists because we don't agree. But what would that world even look like? To them, it would be heaven if people like me suddenly died, or if Gabe Newell just left Steam, because that's what these types are always like. It's not about combating belief systems or proving why their ways are superior. What it always comes down to is how can we remove people we don't like or agree with and then silence them into never speaking again in the future. The reality is that whatever PMG or this Chris Pratt tries to do, the ultimate end goal here is that their efforts are going to be pointless, because what they're advocating for is a removal of what they call toxicity from the industry, not realizing that the toxicity was born and cultivated by their people and not the other way around. And making videos like they did attacking Gabe Newell and specifically calling him a libertarian as if that's bad is all by design, which is to label their enemies and ensure that through videos like that, hopefully the necessary measures can be taken to remove what they deem problematic at these companies and more. But my question is, how is a Steam devoid of free speech or a YouTube or game industry, even without that same free speech, a positive in really any way? In all aspects, that is simply the worst possible scenario for the industry going forward. But these activist types never see things this way. They would rather we all starve and die and everything be on fire than just allow people to have fun without their political jargon being stuffed down their throats 24/7. What it comes down to is this: people make games, or PMG, and their sort of ilk want one thing and one thing only, which is complete and absolute control over the narratives that form and shape the gaming industry. What they don't seem to realize, or maybe they do yet they just don't accept it, is that these people, these activists, have become so far left-leaning, they've entered what can only be truly labeled as alt-left going forward. They're as ravenous and vitriolic as the alt-right they claim is everywhere but on their own side. They are so left-leaning that even people who lean left are also a problem because they don't lean hard enough to their political side even. And at what point do these people realize that the loss of their power in culture is not because of some online boogeyman, but because what they've become is the exact monster they've tried for years to remove as well, without even realizing it even. When you speak about how bad Elon Musk is, or Trump is, or how Gamergate is obviously evil, or whatever else, and when simultaneously calling for the removal of anyone who disagrees with you and to be uprooted from the root itself, you need to start questioning your own antics here. That you have truly become the very biased extremists yourselves, and that nobody, not the rights nor even the left, are enough to satiate your complete lack of self-awareness nor hatred for the rest of the world. You don't just suddenly lose control of the narrative like this and have to resort to basically re-education event camps such as the ones they're putting on if your ideas weren't anything less than insane. The fact these people are so unaware of how crazy they sound on the best of days to normal people and not realizing it was their own beliefs and tactics that led to ordinary people having to push back the way that they did might be the biggest self-own of them all, that they don't realize this. Which is prior to 2014, when the first Gamergate happened, the industry ran just fine. Sure, it may have a problem here or there, but the games are getting made, people were mostly happy, and everyone just kind of lived in harmony in terms of games. It wasn't until said ethics in journalism was questioned by ordinary people, which would be the proto-Patient Zero moment that led to what has happened today. Gamergate 2 wouldn't have begun had a Sweet Baby employee not tried to use their power in journalism and ethics to cleanse out something they didn't agree with. Even Chris Bratt spoke on Sweet Baby and all that in 2024 after his kid was born, and here's what he said via Twitter. Dipping my toes back into work for the first time since Dylan was born, and oh my god. As if the historic number of layoffs hitting the games industry wasn't enough already, we're seeing women and people of color subjected to this hateful stuff again. It's difficult not to get hung up on the ridiculous, mind-numbing misinterpretation of the Sweet Baby Inc. story, but that's a trap I'd rather not fall into on Twitter. Notice how Chris Bratt doesn't mention how Gamergate 2 started at all. It's just the typical, we're the victims of all of this narrative, not bringing light to the fact that his side of this stupid war started not one, but two Gamergates in the past due to their actions alone and abusing that power that they had over readers and players, and the fact that to this day, they haven't apologized for that speaks volumes even. These people are not mentally well. They just want us silenced, and they're now instigating this warlike tactic of now holding actual physical events like Games Transformed to brainwash more people into thinking like them in the future. But what we need in this industry is actually just more common sense and far less of this hateful tribalism that both sides are at fault with. And the fact that PMG went as far as trying to paint Gabe Newell as problematic as seen here, which again in that video, they try to label him as a libertarian, that somehow a bad thing, is actually insane. Like I said, these people only agree with the insane reactionist activist types that lean so heavily to the left that you may as well just call them alt-left at this point. And when even the left-leaning people or the people in the middle like Gabe are now seen as problematic to you and your group, you have to start wondering that if this group of crazies thinks anyone, even those who agree with them 99% of the time, are the problem, how is any group of them exclusively the actual real problem in this industry? And maybe it's not the left-leaning sane people or the libertarians in the middle or even the conservatives that are really the problem, because clearly all of these people have existed for decades, working side by side at many of the game studios, making things you love for years already, and there's proof. Go look at any game made before 2014. Those were all made by people of all beliefs. But instead, this problem suddenly exists when these alt-left freaks come in, and suddenly no one but them and them alone should have power. And if you don't agree that, then you're every phobic in the book, and you can't only not agree with them, but you are now labeled a fascist and must now be removed. It's insane to me that we are labeled the racist when it's these people who only see color and gender at any single given moment. Chris Bratt said in that thing I just shared here on screen again, where he talked about Gamergate, and he specifically outs people as women and people of color. Why not just say people, Chris? Why are you separating black and brown people from white people and Asian people like that? Why are you so ideologically screwed up and brainwashed? You clearly can't see people as anything but by segregating them into groups when you speak about them. If you wanted equality and collective acceptance, stop putting everyone in groups all the time. Stop labeling people with all these gender things that on principle differs them from others. Why are you types so collectively full of so much hate that you act like this all of the time? I just want good games made by people who don't want me dead or jailed. Is that so much to ask for these days? And the fact when developers do give people what they want, like Lords of the Fallen, your types never celebrate this sort of stuff. Instead, it's just, oh, they bent the knee to right-wing alt-right Yahtzees instead. No, they just gave people of all creeds and beliefs what they wanted. They brought people together by their own actions. Why shouldn't you celebrate that instead? Where's a documentary on that one, PMG? Instead, you types attack these things and spew articles and events like this to just hate on them instead. It's not really gonna work, and I can't really speak for everyone but me, but I truly believe the whole industry would be a far more welcoming and better place if there simply wasn't this cabal of insane people trying to inject all their personal belief systems and propaganda into anything they can get their hands on these days. Look, consultant types like Sweet Baby or places like PMG ran by people who are backed by websites are the actual true evil in this industry alongside the greedy executives that are also monopolizing everything. Like, we have enough problems with the horse armor stuff to the overpaid cosmetics that's plaguing so many games today. But also having to deal with real world present day communist morons who think that everyone they disagree with should just be censored or removed entirely from the internet is just as pressing an issue. And a reminder, just because Gamergate won like it did in 2024 doesn't mean that this is suddenly over. They're clearly mobilizing even further, and they're not afraid to pull even people like Gabe Newell of Steam and Valve into this political maelstrom as well to make a point. I hope this video informed you to understand that these events like these are nothing but propaganda designed to just indoctrinate vulnerable people into becoming radical far left activists in the end. And while I know they will continue to scurry like the cockroaches they are when we shine a light on them, we must keep that light on always, because gaming won't heal until these types are laughed out of the room for being the propagandists that they truly are, and trying to hit Valve like they did, that's just a low blow, man. But what do you expect from these types? Thank you for watching. Subscribe, let me know what you think as always, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Upgrade complete. Done and dusted. Military research complete.
Doom: The Dark Ages has officially come out, and you would think the game would have blown the doors off the hinges and completely taken over the industry by now. Instead, the release of Dark Ages has resoundingly been met with a far more muted response than expected. And the question now is why? What happened? Are players rejecting this game? Did the boycott of fans demanding id Software not include things like Denuvo actually affect the sales, or is it something else? Let's dive into it. Firstly, the game reviewed well, and I have officially beat the whole game myself and got the Platinum Trophy for Dark Ages. Overall, I thought the game was good, but not amazing. On paper, it has many concepts that I do love in games. Dragons, cosmic gods, and heavy metal music. But I think what Dark Ages promised versus what it delivered was a far safer and by-the-numbers experience than players likely anticipated. There's also the question of value that Dark Ages provides versus those of previous Doom games. Doom 2016 launched with a full campaign as well as a multiplayer mode that allowed players to fight one another, as well as the snap map feature, which allowed players to make their own levels and then upload them like in Halo 3 with Forge so that other players could play them. This led to a longevity for Doom 2016, and it always helped that it was the first game of its kind to have this new modern Doom way of playing and doing things, where it's become so iconic that plenty of other games like Proteus, Ultra Kill, and even Rage 2 are all pretty much just homages or straight rip-offs of Doom 2016. Then you had Doom Eternal, which in my opinion is probably the most complete experience of what this modern Doom trilogy has felt like so far. It was like Doom 2016 but on crack. You could dash around, rip and tear, and like Doom 2016, Eternal also has a multiplayer mode called Battle Mode instead this time, which allowed one player to play the Slayer, and then everyone else were demons, and you had to, end each other pretty much. While not the best online mode ever made, it was at least something besides the campaign. And then you get to Dark Ages, which has a campaign, and well, that's it. There's nothing else. There's no other modes that exist at launch besides that main campaign, which had me confused as to what was the plan here from the beginning with Dark Ages versus the more robust previous offerings. Don't get me wrong, okay? Dark Ages campaign is good, even great at times. I found the dragon flying mission early on when you're taking down the fortress to be a particular highlight of the game. And there's some boss battles especially that felt really good to play against, but when you compare what Dark Ages offers to the previous two games in its trilogy, it simply may not have been enough for most players to buy into, at least outside of Xbox anyways. Of course, Dark Ages is available on Game Pass day one. Id Software is now also owned by Microsoft, so that was a given that it was going to happen. And obviously, because of that, Xbox players have no real reason to buy the game outright. So id Software and Microsoft would instead need to rely on PlayStation 5 and Steam players to pick up the slack to support the franchise instead. And looking at the numbers, well, it's surprisingly not looking great, and it's kind of confusing actually. Here's an article titled, Doom the Dark Ages launches with lowest Steam player count in modern trilogy, and when you look at the numbers, it's even more brutal. Firstly, let's look at Doom 2016 Steam numbers, which hit a concurrent player count this year of 44,000 players at its peak. A reminder, this game is now 9 years old as of this video going live anyways. So while that number may seem low Steam-wise these days, but remember that gaming was much smaller back then compared to it is now. So this is actually a very healthy number, and obviously we know that Doom 2016 did well enough to obviously warrant a sequel and then some. I couldn't find exact concrete numbers on how much Doom 2016 sold specifically, but from what I gathered online, it sold somewhere between 5 to maybe 5.5 million copies, with some estimates claiming that it has breached the 6 million mark and then some, but again, I can't confirm any of that myself. Regardless, for a single player game released in 2016 when stuff like Battle Royales hadn't already taken over literally everything by that point, 5 to 6 million units plus for your modern Doom game is healthy, and id Software clearly made a hit. Then with Eternal, the numbers speak for themselves, as seen here from Game World Observer back in 2020 when Eternal first launched. The game was confirmed to have surpassed all previous Doom titles in the franchise upon release. And Eternal did so well actually, it doubled the revenue and profits of Doom 2016. Although exact copies sold, again, I'm unable to find any concrete info on that one either. Regardless, Eternal did very, very well for id Software, while some had problems with the game. Generally speaking, the game was a complete experience, and it reiterated on what modern Doom was going for, and like I said, these two Doom games pretty much revolutionized the boomer shooter genre and revitalized it, and led to many clone-like games being made. A good comparison actually is From Software. What modern Doom did with its gameplay and style and movement is very similar to how From Software's Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, and even Elden Rings and all of those did when it came to dungeon crawling RPGs. As we know, the term Souls-like or Soulsborne is pretty much everywhere now. There's plenty of games inspired by From Software's design releasing every other month now, it seems. So it's clear that Doom's reboot was very influential in a very similar fashion, and that's good for id Software. And looking at Eternal Steam chart numbers as seen here, Eternal more than doubled 2016's game and then some on Steam alone. Some reports even claim that Eternal made id Software roughly $450 million in revenue within its first year or two of release, which is amazing. The game also received 2 expansions, which were called the Ancient Gods Part 1 and 2, and overall Eternal was, by all intents and purposes, it was the complete package for what a Doom player would want to see from this franchise pretty much in the modern age. This then brings us to Dark Ages, and when you look at its Steam charts, the numbers are, well, they're concerning, to say the least. Here's Dark Ages Steam chart numbers, which peaked at just 31,470 players, and mind you, this chart is currently displaying Dark Ages player numbers during its opening weekend. As this article here says, which is titled, Doom the Dark Ages achieved only 29% of Eternal Steam launch player count. It does paint a bleak picture for Dark Ages when you compare how it's performing versus that of the previous two games. If we think about it though, Doom 2016, that launched at a perfect time. Like I said, Battle Royale live service slop was present during this time, but it was nowhere near the level that it's operating at these days. Games like Fortnite right now offer entirely unique experiences for free. Battle Royale, racing cars, Rock Band pretty much, not to mention Ballistic and all the other unique modes players can make. You even got Lego and then some. I know someone will say, but why are you comparing Fortnite to Doom? They're two different audiences, but these days, most AAA offerings, they do tend to overlap. And Doom 2016 came out when those sorts of games were expected to be what they were at that time. People weren't as normalized to free to play like they are now, and then switching to Eternal, it too had its own perfect storm as well. Eternal released during the COVID pandemic. People were inside, frustrated, angry, and just, you know, mad at the world. Who can blame them? And then here came a game where they could rip and and tear demons
Civilian
apart and
structure
shoot stuff to
complete.
blow off steam, and people were inside, obviously, with literally nowhere to go. So naturally, people wanted escapism during this time period, and Eternal was the panacea to the bleakness of the world that was around them. And we also need to remember that both Doom 2016 and Eternal were cheaper than games are now too. And when we look at Dark Ages, it proves that maybe the industry's push for full-price games these days is not going to go as they initially planned. Remember that Microsoft and Nintendo do want to raise prices this fall, meaning that Dark Ages at full price now will be cheaper than it will be this fall when it goes at, even more money at full price. But if the numbers we're getting now exist, what hope does it have then? It'll obviously be discounted if this trajectory continues the way that it's going before launch. But I know others will say, well, Dark Ages is on Game Pass, therefore that's why people aren't paying for it the same way. And let's actually look into that for a second, because Doom 2016, that came out a full year before Xbox Game Pass even existed yet. And at the time, Microsoft also did not own its software either. And when Eternal came out, it did come to Game Pass. However, it did not release day one on Game Pass, but instead it was actually 7 months after its initial release is when it finally landed on Game Pass to play. With Dark Ages, however, it is the first of this trilogy that was day and date on Game Pass, which means this is the first time a Doom game has released on it, and clearly it has changed things. Because another thing that I noticed was that Dark Ages is technically the first fully produced in-house Doom game under Microsoft's wing, whereas Eternal was in development long before Microsoft had actually acquired id Software, and what Dark Ages represented to me was this very safe, almost by the numbers in some instances kind of experience when compared to the previous two games. And something kept creeping into my head as I played the game, which is maybe Dark Ages was made with a similar vision as, say, the same way Avowed or the more recent Halo games were too, which is that these games, now all under Microsoft, just needed to be good enough to release on Game Pass, and that's really it. Look, I'm not saying that Dark Ages is a bad game. It reviewed similarly in the mid to high 80s like the other two games did, but having played it fully, it is also far easier than, say, Eternal. Like I said, it launched with less modes than the previous two games too. And I do think that Dark Ages should have at least opted for an optional game mode. The idea that comes to my mind is a roguelite game mode, probably. Something similar to what God of War Ragnarok added post-launch, which allowed Kratos to run through a Hades-style game mode, fighting monsters while getting story bits and info along the way, and then if you died, you would restart and get new upgrades, that sort of thing. And Doom obviously already has a strong responsive gameplay loop, and this would just make sense to add. Or another equally interesting game mode would have been perhaps a Space Marine 2-like operations game mode instead, where players could team up as Slayers or whatever else, and then hunt demons together and level up and upgrade their weapons in an RPG-like scenario to customize their Slayers. But again, none of this exists in Dark Ages. It's just 22 main missions, and that's it. Arguably, though, it then begs the question if id Software may have to some degree phoned this game in somewhat, because there's probably not much fear, I guess, of mass layoffs on performance when it comes to Dark Ages compared to the previous games.
Let the
Obviously,
bidding
Doom
commence.
2016 and Eternal initially required more modes and pizzazz, if you will, because there was tangible realities being formed that, let's say, if Doom 2016 flopped out of the gate, id Software would have been facing mass layoffs. And Eternal was also created with that same sort of vision in mind. Obviously, halfway through development, id Software got bought by Microsoft, but the blueprint, design, and vision were already set in stone at that point. With Dark Ages, well, their bills are already paid for. id Software can, in theory, just coast on by and kind of just, make whatever they want, which is likely why they didn't feel the need to add more game modes, because regardless of the performance of the game, they'll still be here and they'll probably be fine. And I'm sure performance matters to a degree, and I wager that Dark Ages is doing great on Game Pass already, sure, but it is also a completely different scenario to what id Software is used to operating within, and we all know, despite games releasing on Game Pass, that they can and do still perform well outside of those services, well, some of them anyways. A good recent example is Oblivion Remastered. Here's that game's Steam chart, as you can see here on screen. Oblivion peaked at 216,000 players on Steam, and currently, as of this video going live, has more players on Steam than Dark Ages does, despite it being almost a month old now. To add more proof to what's going on, so we get another game that also launched on Game Pass day one that's doing insanely well outside of it, which is Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. That game sold over 2 million copies so far, and let's look at its Steam chart too. And as you can see, Clair Obscur hit almost 145,000 players on Steam to despite
That's
Game
more
Pass
like it.
having it as well.
Commerce
And it still
upgrade
has
complete.
just over 100,000 players as of this video
Times
coming
of
out, and it's been
war
about
are
a week
upon
and a
us.
bit away from being available, to buy for about
Need
1 month
something
almost.
destroyed?
So why are Oblivion and Clair Obscur doing so well despite Game Pass Day 1 releases, but Dark Ages isn't doing nearly as hot? Well, there's another big reason, which is, of course, the price of these games. Oblivion Remastered launched at $50 American and comes with the entirety of Cyrodiil to explore alongside 2 whole feature-complete expansions. All remastered and rendered in beautiful graphics, well, despite the citizens still looking weird, but hey, that's Oblivion's charm, I guess. But regardless,
Done
the
and
game was
dusted.
not a full-price game, yet despite that, Oblivion gave what can only be described as offering more content than most fully priced premium titles these days anyways. Then Clair Obscur launched at the same price point of $50 American, and having 100% of
The
that game
item
myself
is
and
ready.
platinumed it, I can confidently say that Clair Obscur more than justifies its asking price, and Clair Obscur also
Planet
took me like
item
93
complete.
hours to platinum. I got everyone to level 99, I did everything, I really enjoyed that game. I also thought it had easily one of the best turn-based combat systems of all time. But again, both of these games
Military
launched at well
research
below
complete.
the price points of what is considered
Logistics
premium these
upgrade
days.
complete.
Now with Dark Ages, it launched at $70 American, yet despite it launching at a premium price point, again, reminder, they will jack the price up this fall when Microsoft increases all of their pricings too, that Dark Ages launched with less modes and with a far easier game to boot. The shield in Dark Ages pretty much trivializes a lot of the enemy attacks too, since you can safely block basically anything you want that you can't
Civilian
get out of the
structure
way of.
complete.
And the shield has a resistance meter, so it can really block anything to a certain point before kind
Another
of,
structure
blocking
is
and
in the
getting
way.
pushed away to the side, I guess. Which of course, if you're not good at Doom, and hey, I'm not claiming I'm
One
some
of our
god at it
enemies has
either, but if
finished a
even I
Titan.
can completely dominate Dark Ages hordes of demons and then some, there's
Civilian
probably an argument
research
to be made that
complete.
Dark Ages simplified the core gameplay loop a little too much for some people. Don't get me wrong though, I really did enjoy
The
Dark Ages
strength of the
combat. I also really
coalition.
enjoyed
Can
Flying
I
the
do
Dragon
out?
too. However, the big
Civilian
robot
structure
fights, which are
complete.
cool, were unfortunately also taking up entire levels at times to play through, and with already only 22 missions available, I would rather not have those robot missions, and I kind of just wanted more intricate level design to
Times
run
of
around in and
war
play
are
Doom
upon
as Doom
us.
is, you know?
Can
It
I
just
do
maybe
out?
feels like that Dark Ages underperformance as far as it looks so far is due to a huge variety of factors against it.
Logistics
It costs premium
upgrade
pricing,
complete.
yet doesn't offer the same level of content as the previous games. It's also being released not just on Game Pass, but in the marketplace in general during a very crowded time period. Oblivion will definitely be a game that players are still playing
Make
since it
it
is a big
fast.
game, and Clair Obscur 2 is also pretty huge for what it is as well. And both of these games offer more content for less money, whereas Dark Ages took me maybe 20 hours at best to beat in 100%. And hey, look, I'm all for shorter games. I don't personally mind that Doom the Dark Ages was shorter myself, but I guess it's becoming clear that the rest of the marketplace may not be thinking the same way as me. And I should also state that Dark Ages did top the Steam Global Sellers list when it did release, so the game is obviously still
The
being
item
bought,
is
and
ready.
players, even if the Steam numbers aren't the best, are playing it. However, it is concerning when stuff like Stellar
Military
Blade, which is a
research
year-old
complete.
PlayStation exclusive, is now coming to PC
Civilian
soon as well.
structure
And as you can
complete.
see here, Stellar Blade is currently outselling Dark
Planet
Ages
item
on Steam
complete.
despite it not being out till June 2025. And hey, I get it, man. I beat Stellar Blade when it came out. I love that game. It took me somewhere in the maybe 40 to 50 hour mark probably to fully platinum the game. And I felt like what I played of Stellar Blade more than justified its price point to me, and I have no doubt that when Stellar Blade releases on Steam, it will be probably a massive success on that platform too. I expect at least
and
50,000
dusted.
concurrent players at the very least. Wouldn't even be
Defense
surprised if it hit
upgrade
100,000
complete.
actually. But it's weird how Dark Ages,
Make
which
it
should have had a
fast.
similar Steam player count to Eternal at least, instead regressed so poorly like this. You would think that your third game would have more, not 1/3 what your previous game achieved in the same time frame. But maybe the industry is just vastly overestimating what people are willing to buy when it comes to the price hikes and how the whole hobby is going. And then there's this from Games Radar Plus, and it's titled, former PlayStation executive says $70 or $80 games are a steal as long as people choose carefully how they spend their money. I don't think they should be complaining. So this comes from Shuhei Yoshida, who worked with PlayStation for decades and recently retired. The guy has been there since the beginning, and since then he has been vibing in his retirement and just doing interviews because, I mean, why not, right? But his message here feels at odds with what players want these days. Claiming that $80 or $90 a game is a steal is not exactly a luxury that most people have as an objective reality these days, because the majority of people are maybe 1 or 2 paychecks away from becoming homeless, which is
Make it
terrible but
fast.
sadly true for many people. And games were already, in my opinion, too expensive at the
item
best
is
of times, with
ready.
most new releases not really justifying their price points at all. Because $70 American, which equates
equates to like $90 Canadian for me. That's a lot to ask for your new game. And with this whole price hike coming into effect, it means that brand new games will be launching for upwards of $110 to $130 Canadian a pop over here. And Canadians are already dealing with high inflation rates and terrible housing costs, not to mention food that just keeps getting more expensive too. Look, I like Shuhei Yoshida, but I do think the guy is not speaking from an ordinary person perspective here, but that of a privileged executive instead. The guy has likely not had to buy many of the games that he plays. He was a PlayStation executive, for God's sakes. He likely could just pick up a phone and tell someone to generate him a code for any game on PlayStation that he wanted to play, and they would do it because he's their boss, obviously. Or I guess was now. But whatever, the point still stands. Shuhei Yoshida hasn't really needed to buy games to a similar degree as you or me have.
Your arguments are
compelling. The reality is not everyone is living clearly off the salary of a top PlayStation executive, where he might think it's a steal to others. It's stealing already as a robbery from their wallets. By the way, this interview is conducted by Critical Hit Games, and here's what Shuhei said as it reads here. When you look at life in general, other products in price have increased, way more than the game price, so I think it was almost too late for the video game companies to start looking at the pricing structure. I can see where Shuhei is going with this, but this argument is still moot because you can't compare the inflated pricing of entertainment and then justifiably place it against things people need to continue living. It's not a fair comparison to say Doom the Dark Ages costing 70 or I guess 80 or 90 later this year is totally fine because your chicken breast is more expensive now too, or comparing Dark Ages pricing to say your water bill or your rent or your car payment. These are things people need to actually live. And Dark Ages, like any other game, movie, or show, are entertainment. They are not necessarily necessary for the continuation of one's life. Is it nice to have new games to play? I mean, yeah, of course it is. But if it comes down to whether you should buy Dark Ages day one or have to pay your rent so you don't, I don't know, end up homeless or put food on your table, the answer is obviously simple for most people. And the reality is that I believe a lot of these executives and journalists, both of whom get free access to the media they speak on and never really have to open their wallets for games outside of the very few rare circumstances where that might happen, are clearly speaking from a privileged position here. I think the reaction to Dark Ages and the lack of support it's getting from fans, that it tells a much different story than what Shuhei and the rest are trying to push as the objective reality. Again, no shade at Shuhei Yoshida. He's entitled to his opinion, but I don't agree with him on this one at all. Shuhei continues where he also says this: I don't believe that every game has to be priced the same. Each game has different value it provides or the size of budget. I totally believe that it's up to the publisher or developer self-publishing decision to price their product to the value that they believe they are bringing in. This is true, and like I showed you with Oblivion Remastered and Player Obscure as well, I think it's very obvious, unless your fully priced premium game is something akin to Baldur's Gate 3 or something like that, the likelihood that your game succeeds at that price point is very minimal at best these days. And the games doing the best right now are far cheaper than these premium offerings, and Dark Ages, in my opinion, should have sold at best $60 American base price, not $70. Especially when, like I said, it released in a crowded time and there's better games for cheaper that last longer too. And here's what one user said in that Games Radar Plus article about Shuhei Yoshida. Here's what they said. Says a millionaire, the issue with the prices is we get incomplete games. If I'm gonna pay $80 for a game, then there better not ever be any updates or season pass or expansion packs I still have to download or pay for. I better get 100% of the game on day one. Don't sell me half the game for $80, then in a year make me buy a $40 expansion pack. And that's really what happens most of the time, isn't it? A lot of games launch these days buggy. Even Dark Ages has problems too. A lot of people can't unlock the Super Trophy, which requires you to upgrade everything because the game glitches out, stopping them from the Platinum Trophy. Thankfully, somehow, I didn't get that bug, but it's very prevalent all over from what I've been reading prior to playing the game. I was actually dreading that trophy not popping as I played it, so when it did, I kind of just put my arms up in the air and went, oh, it worked for me. That's weird. But it's kind of sad that I was surprised about it, isn't it? Because if I paid full price, shouldn't the trophy just work as intended anyways? Why is something like that bugged to begin with? I've said this before, but what Shuhei doesn't bring up is that video games are uniquely one of the only products that I can think of where you're expected to pay 100% of the product, yet usually you don't really ever get 100% of the product up front too. In no other industry can I think this is something welcomed or normalized outside of gaming. Maybe real estate, I guess, because sometimes you gotta wait for the house to be built. Not the best comparison, but honestly, that's all I can really think of. Everything else, if you buy food or a car or a TV, it just works as intended, and if it doesn't, you return it as defective. Or if the food you buy is spoiled, you complain and you get a refund because, yeah, you're entitled to that. Yet with games, if you voice your discomfort that, hey, this game I bought for full price doesn't work, or maybe it lacks features, you're usually just called entitled, or in Shuhei's words here, we shouldn't be complaining if a game is more money than it used to be despite quality or lack of features. We should instead just be happy that the game exists at all, but again, you have to be very privileged to think this way about games. I think what we're actually really seeing as a breaking point in what people are going to be willing to spend on games in the future. And I already know people will use the Nintendo Switch 2 launch and its expensive games as a gotcha and say, see, people are willing to spend more for games. But you're going to be comparing the launch of a new console with a diehard fan base that quite literally buys anything Nintendo makes to the average player out here that doesn't play Nintendo games. And the problem with the Nintendo versus other game companies is that Nintendo has beaten the concept of pay up or shut up into their fan base for literal decades. Because Nintendo fans don't know what cheap games are from Nintendo means, because Nintendo never really reduces the prices of the core franchise's games, if ever. At best, you'll get like $10 off on Zelda in maybe 3 years for like 2 days, and that's it. And if the rest of the industry thinks they can somehow force that behavior onto PC and PlayStation players to act like Nintendo fans do, I'm just gonna say it, man, they're in for a rude awakening. Because on the flip side, PC, especially those fans, have bought heavily discounted games for decades now. And you better have the next coming of Christ of a video game to convince these players to want to fork over $80 or $90 when they could take that same amount of money and go buy like 40 other games in total in bundles instead for that exact same price. And I think these companies are effing around and finding out here real quick that most consumers don't need to buy new games day one unless it's really, really good. Sure, okay, Grand Theft Auto 6 will sell well regardless of the price that it is, but you can't really compare GTA 6 to any other game, really. Because that's like comparing a Maserati to a Toyota. It ain't gonna happen. And the truth is that the industry is changing, and so too are the customers. And the way players have abandoned or boycotted or rejected Dark Ages shows that even if you come from an established franchise like this, that, you know, charging this full premium price point these days is just not going to justify most people to open their wallets no matter what you do, as one user said on Twitter. Turn Doom into Reddit Halo, series dies, they should have went biblical with the series instead of turning it into Rick and Morty mess. Imagine Doom Guy fighting alongside the Archangel Michael, wasted potential. Some users would reply, here's what one said, the people who hated Eternal for not being like 2016 are now mad at the Dark Ages for not being like Eternal. Yeah, it usually works like that, doesn't it? Of course, there was Cope too, as this one user said, using Steam charts again when I assume most people just use Game Pass, go cry about it. Then this guy responded with, oh yeah, well heaps of us are renting it. Yeah, not the best argument there, is it? Well, at least something Doom is selling out. The McFarlane toy version of Doom, guys, you can see on screen here, is already sold out on their website, so I mean, there is interest, just doesn't seem to be translating in a way for the game at least. And we know had Doom already broken a milestone that id Software would have announced it by now, because announcing milestones usually hypes people up, and they get FOMO to check the game out to be a part of the conversation, but so far id Software is just radio silent. Has this game even broke 1 million in sales yet? This is unusually quiet of id Software to do, if you ask me. I mean, we know people will buy games if they deem it good enough, as seen here. I mean, Monster Hunter Wilds broke 10 million copies sold in just 2 months at retail. And yeah, that's a massive success, but Wilds is more than just a campaign. It has a massive, robust endgame too, which Dark Ages unfortunately has nothing like that, as Grum said here too. If Doom Dark Ages can't post AAA numbers, I begin to suspect the $70 price point for games is an inflection point. $80 to $100 later this year is going to be a very hard sell for most games, and I think we see that now. What it ultimately comes down to is this. I'm not saying that Dark Ages has problematic elements or panders, or you should boycott it. It doesn't have any of that stuff at all. But this just comes down to the fact that what they offered hasn't responded in the same degree, and players are looking for just, you know, cheaper alternatives instead these days.
Military
it probably
research
also doesn't help
complete.
too that Dark Ages has Denuvo, and you can't turn off ray tracing on PC, which angered a lot of PC players whose PCs couldn't run ray tracing properly, which means they couldn't play the game even if they wanted to. Well, I'm not saying that Doom is dead or id Software is cooked yet anyways. I think this combination of premium price point, lack of features, Game Pass day one, and too many other just as good, if not even better experiences coming out that cost less also all pamper Dark Ages success. I do hope to see more Doom in the future myself. I think this franchise has a lot to offer still, but I think id Software needs to quickly pivot here and maybe start making more replayable Doom games in the future with more interesting modes than what was on offer here. Because when it comes to Dark Ages, there's nothing besides a skin or two to chase with higher difficulty modes once you beat the game. And besides that, there's nothing else to chase in this game at all, and that kind of sucks. I feel like I got my experience out of this game, and that's it. And I have little reason to ever go back to it. I'm sure that Dark Ages will sell much more when it gets discounted, but at release right now, this may just prove that AAA gaming has some tough questions and decisions ahead of them that they don't want to answer or deal with. And maybe this mandatory price hike is probably not the best way to go about things, but did you play Dark Ages at release? What do you think of it, or did you avoid it because it's asking too much for what it's offering? Let me know in the comments, subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
PlayStation just yeeted Sweet Baby Inc. into orbit, and fellas, it's time to dance on the ashes. Sony's axed a pile of projects tied to these narrative hacks. After years of Sweet Baby turning AAA games into preachy
times of war are upon us.
It seems like the big dogs have finally grown a spine, it seems. Are we done with heroes in video games whining about their feelings and acting like they were forced to attend unconscious bias training? Well, let's see if there's any truth to what's going on here. To put it
the item is ready.
House. From that
research rate upgrade complete.
Reportedly dropped by Sony as gaming giants cancel several projects with Sweet Baby Inc. involvement. This massive bombshell comes from friends of the channel Gothic Therapy. This husband and wife duo are like the eyes that Sweet Baby Inc.
Time
just
to
can't
bring
seem
the
to plug,
thunder.
no matter how hard they try. They've been exposing and getting scoops on everything Stinky Baby related for a while now. Pretty much, Sony's cut Sweet Baby Inc. loose, scrapping multiple...
My forces are mobilized for your raid order.
This means that the next God of War won't have any...
Times of war are upon us.
Going to a therapy session to talk about his toxic masculinity. This news isn't surprising to someone like me. After all, Concord's $400 million belly flop was the thing of legends. Sony lost a lot of money and credibility when they released that stinker of a game. Especially when you consider that Concord costed Sony more to make than something like either Last of Us games or even God of War 2018 and Ragnarok. Yet all the games I just said have sold somewhere in the 10 million plus range, which even for Sony, that's not enough it seems these days. After all, when you compare the pre-Sweet Baby Inc. version of God of War, which sold somewhere close to 20 million, to Ragnarok, which actually sold less than that, it's not really surprising because people don't want this blasphemy.
Military research complete.
And of course then you have Spider-Man 2, which was also Sweet Baby aligned and barely scraped half its 2018 game sales in comparison. Sony's wallets are crying, and Sweet Baby's the fall guy. But it shouldn't be that surprising considering where Sweet Baby's mission started, which is Quebec, Canada.
Research rate upgrade complete.
Which makes me sad every time I remember that I'm Canadian, and that means this plague originated near me to any capacity. And yes, I apologize on behalf of Canadians, dear viewers. We're not all morons who think all your games should suck donkey balls, I assure you. However, that Park Place does bring up a story I didn't know about when it came to Kim Belair. That's the co-founder of Sweet Big Bang Baby. So she was interviewed at some point in 2019 and brought up Mass Effect 2 of all games, and according to Park Place, Kim Belair was upset that players were able to change their Commander Shepard into whatever they wanted when they played that game. As in, you know, your skin color, being male or female, the whole shebang. So her Commander Shepard, which she made, is a black female character, obviously.
Our shields are down, Commander.
Taylor in Mass Effect 2, who's a black guy, in case you've never played the game, but Kim Belair then had this eureka moment of representation, according to her. Here's what she said during that speech in 2019. The general idea was, holy moly, representation is cool. But in my Mass Effect experience, this is
times of war are upon us.
Representation because it's something that's a possibility. It's not guaranteed for any player depending on the kind of character and the Commander Shepard you make. So I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if this wasn't an accident, but it was actually the intention of the game designers? Ah, so she had an accidental moment of two black characters meeting in a game and then thought that every single player out there, regardless of their skin color, gender, and anything else, would love to have the same sort of experience that she had. So this kind of explains South of Midnight, which came out recently, by the way. It's made by Compulsion Games. The actual Steam numbers for Midnight are, well, here, take a look for yourselves. Yeah, they're not great, as you can see. Not many people actually bought this game, which retails for $50 Canadian at release, although it is available on Game Pass. So I would wager the majority of people who I guess did end up playing this game probably just did there instead of buying it.
We have wiped out an enemy colony.
Recorded way back, was originally meant to star a white, fair-skinned young woman, and the game was never meant to be
bring the thunder. They're cruising for a bruising.
This was
military research complete.
This game. And he even got an actual character model comparison from devs there, as you can see here, where the original main character
was very clearly a white woman with European
I
features.
wait.
On the right, that's
Time
the
is
character
short.
that ended up being the final product. And
Our
as you
fleet
can
is
see
under
with
attack.
Your very own eyes, they're completely different. But it's no surprise once Kim Belair joined Compulsion Games to help with the narrative design of the game, she pushed to completely change the game to fit her own agendas and ideals. Because the game was never meant to be what it ended up becoming, but she just forced it because she wanted everyone to have that same experience that she had.
Times of
Black
war are
female
upon us.
Commander Shepard met Jacob in Mass Effect 2 because representation. It's always funny how people have an experience and then imagine that everyone
Our cannon
wants
is
exactly
itching for
what
a
they
target.
want, except that it's
So
never
be
really
it.
the case. And it ain't
Ready
even
to
rumors at
pack
this
a
point,
punch.
because Sony's pattern
We'll
is clear.
see it
Even Square
done.
Enix, for example, they bailed on Sweet Baby Inc. last year after Forspoken died. Sure, Forspoken was consulted by Black Girl Gamers, which is also a real consulting firm, but Black Girl Gamers, Sweet Baby Inc., all of it is sort of the same kind of beast. And if you know the story surrounding Forspoken, Luminous Productions, which made that game, went from creating one of the highest selling Final Fantasies of all
Time
time
to bid.
15,
Place 'em
and
high.
then released Forspoken that literally nobody bought and critics hated. It was a certified modern flop of epic proportions, and then Luminous ended up closing shop.
Your
like, since
orders.
it's Japan.
You don't
the
have to
devs
tell
didn't
us
really lose
twice.
their jobs, at least. They just kind of got folded back into Square Enix to join their various
Good
other
day,
teams in the
Commander.
company. And
I've got a
Forspoken,
present
South
for ya.
Midnight, was based on a
Comlink
demo by Luminous
active.
called Agony's Philosophy, which you're seeing on screen right now. And it, just like Midnight, starred a character that was very obviously, as your eyes can see, not a black woman at all. And look, I'm not saying that games can't have black female leads or anything like that, but the point stands that both of these games were
Good
made
day,
from concepts
Commander.
that were clearly
That's
one
more
thing,
like
but
it.
once these
Our cannon is
consultations got
itching
involved
for
in
a
the
target.
project, they became
We'll
something
see
else
it
entirely.
done.
So it's no
Civilian
wonder to me,
research
anyways, that now
complete.
PlayStation's joining the club of kicking these consulted firms to the curb. Because Sweet Baby's flops are legendary. Suicide Squad bled $200 million. Spider-Man
Reporting
2
in.
launched with more agenda than a summer camp. And while Sweet Baby Inc. didn't work on it, Concord channeled that same sort of activism energy. And then it got shut
A
down
new
faster
colony
than
has been
PSN.
founded.
If you ask me,
Let
ordering
this be
Sweet
a
Baby Inc.
lesson.
to work on
Next
games
time,
now is
pay
just like
up.
inviting in the Grim Reaper.
Military
to take you
research
away at this
complete.
point. Even Insomniac, which did Spider-Man 2, which underperformed, is also doing the Wolverine game. And I think this change has been a long time coming, since back in October 2024, also from Park Place, Marvel's Wolverine's creative director no longer on project due to creative decisions around the game. So Brian Horton, who was the original director of this Wolverine game, he'd been working on it since 2021, and then as we now know, leaves 3 years later, and then just ended up leaving Insomniac entirely. So now there's a new creative and game director, which are people who have worked on Insomniac's other hits like Ratchet and Clank and more. So this just
Mining
tells me
upgrade
that this change in
complete.
direction and citing the creative differences
An
behind
enemy
the scenes
empire has
change
been
are lining up
destroyed.
rather
An
perfectly
opportunity
with Sony.
presents
Again,
itself.
according
Done
to
and
Gothic Therapy,
dusted.
completely removing Sweet Baby Inc. from their company like they were leeches that got way too comfortable. Because look, whether that South
Aye.
Midnight game is good or not, I'm not playing it. Don't ask me to do that, alright? I already suffered
Time
through
is
Assassin's Creed
short.
Shadows for the channel.
Planet item
That
complete.
game is being clearly not
You
supported
don't have
by
to tell
actual
us
buyers of
twice.
the game to a degree that would actually justify its years of development. And it's simple, guys. People don't want to support things that the Stinky Baby was a part of. And I mean, Spider-Man 2 even was allegedly supposed to have DLCs and story expansions, only none of that happened because, like I said, the game ended up selling 50% worse than the previous one did. You know it's bad because the guy who voices Peter Parker...
Military
in those
research
Insomniac
complete.
games, his name is
Time
Yuri
is
Lowenthal,
short.
by the way, had to tell the internet that Peter won't be sidelined in the eventual
Entering
third game, despite
phase
the second
space.
game ending as if Peter was handing the mantle to Miles. Which fans, like your boy here, absolutely hated and was a big reason why Spider-Man 2 was so loathed by actual Spider-Man fans. Here's what Yuri said. He will be part of the next game and he won't be relegated to the couch, I promise. While I think that Peter would love to believe that he can just turn it off and not be Spider-Man anymore and live a
Planet
completely
item
normal life,
complete.
I don't think
Civilian
that's what's
research
going
complete.
to happen now. Okay,
Times
going to
of
happen
war
now.
are
Oh,
upon
so
us.
it was in the cards before then. Well, I hope not. Because I don't know about
Civilian
you, but
structure
I want to play
complete.
Spider-Man in my
Our fleet has arrived at a face jump inhibitor and is now trapped.
He's not Spider-Man, and I don't care how much people try to push him that he isn't.
Eradicate those filthy rats. Commerce upgrade complete.
Displayed on the cover so fans knew who the game actually starred. But let's keep cackling at this train wreck. Sweet Baby Inc. thought they could walk into these studios
Reporting
with the
in.
exaggerated swagger of a black teen and just start reinventing how gaming has been done for years. We've got the vision, they thought, and ended up just leaving a trail of smoldering wrecks instead. The fact that Spider-Man 2 sidelined Peter Parker for Miles was clearly
Time
a
is
Sweet Baby
short.
decision. Think about it. You got a white hero and a black hero. Who do you think Sweet
Civilian
Baby wants
structure
to lead the
complete.
series? It also makes no sense narratively either. Because Miles has
Times
no villains
of
on his
war
own
are
in
upon
that
us.
franchise going forward. Mr. Negative's beef with him is done. The Prowler is retired. The villains are clearly going to be the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus going forward, which are obviously two villains that are tied directly to
Civilian
Peter,
structure
not Miles.
complete.
So what's Miles' angle here? What's his new main villain? I don't know. Maybe he can fight a white guy who's like a landlord that's making people pay more for rent or something.
Mining
He can
upgrade
chase more
complete.
Robot dogs that are designed to kill people and then give them as pets to old women that will definitely not result in that robot dog eating that poor old woman defenseless one day. That's a real mission, by the way, in Spider-Man 2, I'm not lying. You legit give a robot dog to an old lady. They just have no angle here where Peter isn't the main character, and if it was up to Sweet Baby, Miles would just become Marvel Jesus, and
Our
Peter
fleet
would
is
suck
under
in his
attack.
toes like he's God. So it's no wonder that Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't care how these games perform or how
Civilian
they're
structure
They
complete.
just pocketed the cash from these studios and then moonwalked themselves out of there. Maybe Sony's finally realizing that gamers don't want gender studies homework with their website. They want chaos. They
Civilian
want
structure
stakes and great
complete.
characters,
Make
not
it
Spider-Man
fast.
crying over
Military
his
research
guilt.
complete.
I could just imagine Sweet
Free
Baby Inc. pitched to
cremation.
Sony for the next
Civilian
God of War
structure
game. Kratos
complete.
needs a feelings journal. Maybe he needs
We have wiped out an enemy colony.
you know, to show
We'll
people
see
that
it
he's
done.
that he's turned around.
Time
And I'm
to
sure
bring
Sony
the
America,
thunder.
which is situated in
Commerce
California,
upgrade
would hear
complete.
that and start clapping like seals, thinking, "Oh,
Free
it's so progressive."
cremation.
Look, Sweet Baby Inc. so detached, they would turn the Horizon series, if they could, into a co-op knitting simulator. They would instead have you craft like scarves instead of arrows. You ask me, Sweet Baby Inc.'s the DLC that nobody is asking for, and Sony's clearly not laughing. They're just done with this circus. And the cherry on
Like
top of
bringing
all of
a
this is
gun
Sweet
to
Baby
a
Inc.'s
knife
never
fight.
once bragged
Civilian
about
research
putting
complete.
teams into deals with them.
Civilian
If you're a creator
structure
working in
complete.
AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify
Time to
them
bring
with
the
the possibility
thunder.
of what's going to happen
They're
if they don't give you
cruising
what
for
you
a
want.
Well,
bruising.
Kim, you scared
Free
Sony, all right?
cremation.
To fire you
Like
off
bringing
for
a
working
gun
there
to a
again, so
knife
good job on
fight.
that one.
They're
And PlayStation's
cruising
not
for
here
a
for your
bruising.
fanfic rewrites. Kratos doesn't need the help. He needs skulls to crack and spines to twist. And look, even if this project is was allegedly a part of it, Sony cost them some millions to turn around.
Civilian
the
structure
point is that
complete.
The alternative would have been hundreds of millions of dollars in losses and damages to their brands instead. So it's
Our
worth
shields
this
are
change
down,
to
Commander.
happen if it means that we can get back on track and back into business. So why is this a game changer? Sony's not just
Time
dodging a
to
bullet from
bring
us.
the
They're
thunder.
dodging a literal nuke. Because Sweet Baby's a vampire. They're just draining games with their
Civilian
weapons.
structure complete.
Every
Commerce
game that they've
upgrade
touched has been
complete.
objectively worse because of their involvement. And fellas, it brings me so much joy to hear that Sony
They're
of all places
cruising
could
for
be
a
sending a
bruising.
sticky baby in a rocket towards the sun to atomize it into nothingness. It really does. And I mean, can you blame Sony when your flagship
Planet
titles
item
don't make
complete.
the same amount of money as they used to? Then you look over and you see stuff like Black Myth Wukong just saying, you know what, screw your consultants, and then
Let the
they
bidding
end up selling 20
commence.
million plus copies. That's Elden Ring level, by the way. And then Black Myth Wukong becomes an overnight
Times
legend
of
that
war are upon us.
Good
Good day, Commander. Our shields are down, Commander. Need something destroyed? Our shields are down, Commander.
Not lectures on privilege. Because let's be real, you can only have so many Concord level flops before you end up becoming the next Ubisoft, pretty much. And here's the swift kicker to the side of the head. Sweet Baby's still whining like they're the good guys. Kim Belair's probably still trying to spin a sob story.
Time is short.
Like Sony stabbed us in the back. Not Kim.
Our shields are down, Commander.
Sanctimonious
Ready
nonsense.
for
Look,
orders.
Studios are going broke. Fans are bored of
Self-destruct
this, and Sony's
initiated.
done playing
We have no
hard.
need for
And
this
truly,
any
though,
longer.
means that PlayStation
Need
is now
something
back in
destroyed?
effect. And it
Military
isn't just a
research
gesture,
complete.
But it's instead a middle finger to every
Logistics upgrade complete.
Players
The
and not
strength
their
of the
egos.
coalition.
Sony's betting on delivering the goods again, hopefully, and maybe Kratos might actually kill something next time without crying about it. So what's Sony got up its sleeve now? According to the internet, they're pivoting hard. Single-player bangers, no more live service flops. God of War without the touch of crap, and
Comlink active.
And it's no surprise this stuff is happening.
Easily
Just a
done.
bit back. This is from Eurogame. Sony cancels
Make it
2 more live
fast.
service games, including one based on God of War. A God of War live service game. What were they cooking over there, I wonder? I can already see
I
the
put
reveal
the
trailer.
laughter
It's a
in
group of
slaughter.
randomly very diverse and ugly people with a black
Let's
lesbian
make some
leading
martyrs!
monsters. And then out of nowhere, an Asian woman with a unibrow and a septum.
No bid. You missed out.
Civilian
The
research
camera pans
complete.
up and we see the villain. It's a white guy, of course, and then a shot of the vendors of the game shows. And all the vendors are incredibly diverse, and then it shows Kratos for like 5 seconds to remind you this is somehow God of War related. And then the subtitle of the game probably gets said by Kratos like God of War
No
Bloodbath
armor!
or something like that. Yeah, no thanks. I'm good. I'm glad
Maximum
it's
civilian
There's
orbit
not
slots
enough players
reached.
to ask me to keep all of these
We're
live
falling
service
apart
offerings
here.
going.
Need
And I'd
immediate
rather Sony
assistance.
focus on delivering
Can we still
quality
turn the
agenda-free
tide in our
single-player
favor?
offerings than tying one of their talented studios to the live service slop cycle of development that is plaguing
Comlink
games.
active.
Just give us blood in action, Sony, not
That's
bonding
more
and
like
white
it.
guilt seminars in our games for God's sakes. Because chasing these woke trends is a loser's game. Sweet Baby's exit from
Our
Sony
shields are
hopefully
down,
means that
Commander.
Kratos is going to be smashing gods again. And I mean that, both in terms of fights
Our
and
shields are
mini
down,
games, too, if
Commander.
you know what I mean. And I look at upcoming remasters like Days Gone as a good example of where Sony might be heading. They know that Days Gone sold absurdly
Need
well for how
something
much it cost
destroyed?
them, and these remasters only exist for
We're
really
falling
2
apart
reasons.
here.
One is
Need
that
immediate
remasters are
assistance.
used to generate
Prepared to
revenue, then
engage,
use that
but we might
revenue
need
to
some
make the
backup.
sequel game.
No
Another big reason
armor!
for a remaster
Our
is
shields
also
are down,
simple.
Commander.
It's to gauge whether
Logistics
there's interest
upgrade
in more
complete.
content being made in
Plotting
that
jump
franchise in the
coordinates.
future as well.
Ready
This is
for
why I tell
battle.
people, if you want a Days Gone
Easily
2 and
done.
you want to return
Our
to that
shields are
base
down,
gaming
Commander.
era that Sony used to
Civilian
be in,
structure
you should
complete.
Probably support Days Gone remaster. It's like I always
Our
say, you
shields
gotta
are
vote with
down,
your wallet
Commander.
for the things you want to keep seeing and keep it closed to the things
Civilian
you want to see
structure
less of.
complete.
Because remember that
Our
Sweet
shields
Baby's
are
still
down,
working.
Commander.
As master of the TDS, who's half of
We're
Gotham
falling
Therapy,
apart
also
here.
revealed
Need
in his
immediate
exposé with
assistance.
his wife that Sweet Baby Inc. still has like 30 games in the works at least. And I think we can all probably guess that whatever these 30 games end up becoming, more than half
Good
of them are
day,
gonna be
Commander.
absolute flops that they release too, because why would you want to support this kind of drivel? If we allowed this to fester, literally every game on the Western Front of the
Civilian
very least
structure
would be effectively
complete.
popped down by
Our
things
cannon
like
is
this.
itching
Because
for
if
a
a Days Gone
target.
sequel
I
happened,
put the laughter in
catch
slaughter.
Deacon St. John would be
Civilian
killed in the
structure
opening by a
complete.
Chinese lady
Our
with a
shields are
massive
down,
rifle.
Commander.
And then some random Indian woman named Michael would become the main character all of a sudden. And if
No
Sweet Baby was still
armor!
a part of like
Good day,
Insomniac,
Commander.
Spider-Man 3 would unironically somehow have a playable Ghost Spider. That's the Spider
That's
they
more
get
like
who
it.
gets their wheelchair to their back
Comlink
when they swing around
active.
fighting crime. And that's
Easily
Will, by the way.
done.
That's an actual character that exists, but we'll know
Civilian
it along the
structure
right track when
complete.
Sony drops a trailer with zero preaching.
Our
for
shields
their
are
core
down,
franchises.
Commander.
If
Ready
whenever the
for
next God of War
battle.
gets revealed and it just shows Kratos tearing through dudes like he's at a Black Friday sale,
Civilian
then we
structure
can go back to
complete.
business. But if you
Times
ask
of
me,
war
SBI
are
is
upon
at the
us.
reverse Midas
No
touch. Instead of turning
armor!
everything to gold,
No
they just turn everything
armor!
into poopy gray
Good
slop
day,
whenever they're
Commander.
involved. Sony's got to nail this going forward.
Yes,
Put fun
Commander,
first
at
and
once.
Throw away the preaching altogether. But if you ask me, this sounds like it could be a turning point. This isn't just Sony's win, it's a win for gamers. They can't reasonably afford these
Civilian structure
$100 slot
complete.
simulators anymore.
We're falling apart here. Need immediate assistance. Time is short.
Recently
Shields
are doing well
down.
people don't want
Good
to
day,
support stuff that the
Commander.
movie is attached to. And if you ask me, the turning point for all of this, besides Gamergate, was Black Myth Wukong, because they proved it. 20 million plus sales.
Our shields are down, Commander. Military research complete. No armor! Comlink active. Easily done. Ready for battle. Comlink active. That's more like it. Civilian research complete. Our shields are down, Commander.
And if Sony's showing spine with moves like this, maybe others.
Our shields are down, Commander.
30 or so project is
plotting jump coordinates. Good day, Commander. Ready for battle.
It's probably a good idea to gut whatever slot they put in your games. Because even if you remove Sweet Baby from your credits or try your best to hide that you worked with them, the proof is going to be in your story, your characters, the gameplay, all of it. Because players can tell when they're being talked down to, and no amount of makeup is going to convince
Need
people
something
that a pig
destroyed?
Is not a pig, if you ask me.
Our shields are
And
down,
then if
Commander.
players find out that you lied to them about concealing that,
Ready for battle.
Game, oh boy, you're cooked. And whatever backlash you were gonna face is gonna be amplified
Yes, Commander,
by 1,000
at
in
once.
response.
Can
the
I
last
do
thing
out?
that customers enjoy is being lied to, but when it comes to Sweet Baby Inc., I just don't think supporting anything they make is a morally good idea. And if these rumors are to be believed, it's in Sony's
Comlink active.
best interest to completely gut this nonsense going forward.
Easily
make your
done.
games fun, make them work in release so they don't crash on the kite, make your story
Defense
interesting,
upgrade
and
complete.
doing and adding stuff because you need to hit quotas. The wool is off everyone's eyes now. You can't hide this stuff anymore.
Make it fast. Good day, Commander.
Political nonsense in the future. You can bet
That's
that I will
more
be
like
there
it.
to call it out. Because
Time
no matter
is
how much
short.
flack and negative comments I get from places telling me to end myself for standing up for gamers, which
Armor
is daily at
breach.
this point,
We're
I still won't stop.
defenseless.
I care too much. about
Ready
it.
to pack a
This medium
punch.
deserves all the respect that it deserves. So always ask questions and listen to that pattern recognition.
You
in your
don't have
brain.
to
If you
tell
notice
us
something,
twice.
Look into it, call it out, and go deep. The world will be a better
Make
place
it
as long as
fast.
evil is uprooted in any chance that we can get. But what do you think about all of this? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe. Thank you for watching. And here's hoping that PlayStation finally has truly severed ties with the sneaky, putrid, god-awful baby once and for all.
Our shields are down, Commander.
Ubisoft is planning, and this is the problem that I have.
Time is short.
In essence, I agree with this. I think that if you're harassing developers on a personal level because you... So what the f*** happened with this?
One thing I never had on the bingo card for 2025 is Ready or Not being downvote brigaded by their own community.
Oh.
At a time during the Steam summer sale where Ready or Not is 50% off on Steam, you'd think we'd see a lot more eyes on their title leading up to their console launch on July 15th.
Done and
For
dusted.
transparency's sake, I have a pending deal with Ready or Not to celebrate their console launch. They wanted me to jump in.
Good for him.
That was going to be some sponsored content for Void Interactive.
Defense upgrade
As you guys
complete.
can see from this
Our
shot,
fleet has hit the limit of our
things aren't
supply
looking very
capacity.
good. It seems
It's
like for the
time to
last
put it
few
to good
days,
use.
Crazy
people are
on
getting a
this.
little pissed off. Articles being written about how
Controversial shooter Ready or Not drops to mixed reviews as community slams dev for censorship.
First-person shooter Ready or Not
Military
drops to
structure
mixed reviews
complete.
as community slams the developers for censorship. What does this all mean? Let's talk about it. Ready or Not will be censored before launching on consoles, and it could even affect
Our
the
cannon
PC
is
version.
itching
Now, this
for a
article was
target.
published 2 days ago. It has now been confirmed this is happening to the PC version as well.
Can
And
I
we're
do
just
out?
gonna go to the source here and read through what's actually going on.
Insufficient
Console
metal.
rating content changes. Throughout the console port process, we've done our utmost to only make changes when they're flagged as absolutely required by our first party
Civilian
partners.
structure
Our
complete.
age rating as it stands for consoles is ESRB M rating, PEGI 18, USK 18 to give an idea. Still, there are other game content requirements
Civilian
that
structure
console
complete.
platforms have in order
Time
to
is
exist on their
short.
systems, and a portion of these changes will be visible on the PC version. And
See, that's what's gonna piss people off, right? Is like if you're getting your game censored just to make Sony happy.
Military
of
structure
course that's gonna
complete.
make the player base mad. If you look at it from the perspective of a PC player, your game is now being changed because of something that has nothing to do with you in order for the company to make more money. Yeah, obviously they'd be fucking mad.
Defense
like,
upgrade
you
complete.
take away the reason and you take away the purpose and you just say, we're changing the game
The item is ready.
in order to make it more accessible for consoles. Yeah, and we're going to censor it because of that. That would make
Civilian
anybody
research
mad.
complete.
Instead of jumping into that,
It's
they
not
go
even
in and explain
complicated.
the reasons why. There are two main reasons that these limited asset changes may be visible
really.
on the PC version as well. Maintaining multiple versions of the game with different assets and system mechanics
Time to
increases the
bid.
likelihood
Place
of
them
bugs
high.
to appear in future updates. So because this game is cross-platform when it comes to consoles, things
Military
have to have
research
parity.
complete.
If the in-game
Yeah,
assets
sure.
were not the same, it would make crossplay unusable. And because
Uh-huh.
people want crossplay, both games have to
Good
remain
day,
the
Commander.
same.
That's true.
So what does that mean? It means we're losing a lot of gore and dismemberment. Player-induced dismemberment still has a large presence in the game, but is a little more limited.
I heard
as
that
to
Japan's perspective on dismemberment is a little bit more conservative than ours. That's at least my understanding about it. I could be wrong. And I think there's always the historical example that a lot of people know about that's famous, really, that in World of Warcraft,
Military
they're not allowed to
structure
show
complete.
skeletons or bones. And so they have people, whenever they die, they put a tombstone down instead.
when it occurs.
That's
When
China?
a live
Is it-
enemy
are
is
they
shot,
both
they can
China?
undergo dismemberment. However,
I
once
thought that dismemberment was also seen as problematic in Japan also. I could be wrong.
you're dead,
Military
no further
structure
dismemberment
complete.
Occurs.
Item
Note, the
complete,
level of
Commander.
dismemberment itself, when it
Civilian
occurs, is
research
not actually
complete.
toned down.
Time
Ultimately,
is short.
We consider this an okay compromise considering our gameplay
Times
design
of
already
war
dissuades
are
use
upon
of
us.
lethal force
The
anyway.
item
So if you
is
have somebody on the
ready.
ground, you shoot
Planet
them with a
item
shotgun
complete.
when they're already dead.
Military
They're
research
no
tier
longer being
complete.
dismembered.
Let
Also,
this
some
be a
characters are
lesson.
involved in
Next
torture,
time,
which
pay
toned down
up.
slightly to be
Times
less
of
over the top.
war
For
are
example,
upon
the
us.
tortured police informant
Hostile
of
forces have
Narcos
arrived.
is still missing
Civilian
fingers,
structure
eyes, and
complete.
covered in fresh wounds,
Free
blood, but a little
cremation.
bit less so.
Our
So it's
fleet
just
is
been
under
toned
attack.
down just slightly.
Military
Plus,
research
some instances
complete.
of explicit
Need something destroyed?
civilians who want
Times
suspect
of war are upon us.
a bit more.
Our shields are compromised.
They're
Make it fast.
explicit representations of violence and mistreatment against children. Although
Reporting
we already
in.
make a substantial effort to present mistreatment against children in the game in a responsible way, we
Ahead
make slight
slow.
thematic expansions of this philosophy in order to better meet certification standards. For example, the child on Twisted Nerve has an animation change to be unconscious or sleeping
Insufficient
instead of
metal.
previously convulsive animations.
Make
So
it
remember that
fast.
kid in the top
We'll
floor of
see
Twisted
it
Nerve
done.
who's, like, convulsing
Times
on the
of
bed
war
because she
are
was left
upon
by her
us.
parents. Probably
Times
did
of
something we didn't
war
really
are
know
upon
about.
us.
That's no longer
You don't
the
have to
case.
tell us
This is
twice.
the same team that
Item
stared down
complete.
the barrel of a gun from all of the media journalists who were shitting on them for creating a school shooter level. They came down and said, fuck that. We're going to do it with respect. We're going to do it right. And we're going to do it whether you like it or not.
I think this is a really good parallel, which is the Baldur's Gate 3 bear sex scene. People don't really care about whether you can have sex with a bear in Baldur's Gate 3, but it represents a level of creative
Reporting
and
in.
artistic freedom that makes
Time
people
is
think that
short.
they're really playing a art piece and they're playing something that has escapism rather than something that's made for a mass audience or made for commercial appeal. And I think that when you have games that exercise censorship in these ways, what happens is that
Times
the
of
game
war
loses
are
that
upon
sense of
us.
escapism
The
and
item is
authenticity.
ready.
And I think that's
Entering
really
phase
kind of the
space.
parallel that I'm drawing
Times
between
of
these two
war are upon
circumstances.
us.
Art,
Comlink
yeah. And so,
online.
like, and I'm just using this as a broad term, but what I mean is that, like, for example, this is just me, but when I see a video game and it's using something that's different than male or female, I immediately think to myself, oh my god, it's one of those again. Oh, geez,
Times of
it's one
war
of these
are
like
upon
weird
us.
games where it's like some weirdo made this game and they want to make it like, and so it takes me out of the game because I'm thinking to myself, I'm not thinking about being part of the game world anymore. I'm thinking about the game world being inauthentic at this point because it's
Need
being
something
created
destroyed?
in order to push a certain narrative.
Our fleet is
Elden
under
Ring had
attack.
body types though. I didn't say it's a make it or break it. I just said I don't like it. I didn't say I hate every game that has that, but I mean,
They're
I think it was
cruising
stupid
for
when
a
Elden Ring did
bruising.
it too.
Free
I don't understand the
cremation.
point. Like, yeah, and so immersion is key. Yeah, and so that's really my
Time
point.
to
of
bring the
real life
thunder.
pause because and also it breaks the immersion. So I think
Times
that's
of
the reason
war
why
are
people
upon
are
us.
unhappy about this is that they view that this game is it's made in a certain way.
Military research complete.
It's really brutal. It's super gory. Like, for example, like think about a movie like Fight Club or Sin City or something like that. That's like a really brutal, gory movie, or like 300, and then think about how much it would be, how annoying it would be if it got censored or toned down in order to appeal to another group of people. I think that's what's frustrating for a lot of people about this. It's not even necessarily the content itself, it's what the changes of the content represent, which is the fact that you're having your game be altered away from the developer's original vision because of a publisher trying to exercise censorship and control over that game. Now, whether you think that's fair or not, that doesn't really matter. I think it's very evident that there's a lot of people that don't like that.
Times of war are upon us.
Like Berserk, there's a number of examples, you know, like obviously like the Eclipse example with Casca, and then also you have, you know, Guts as a
like
child.
Bringing a gun to a knife fight.
Parts of the story,
so be it.
And if they were
Time
taken
to
out of the
bring
story,
the thunder.
I would be upset as a fan of
Bold
Berserk.
and salty.
Does that mean that you
Bold
like that
and
kind of
salty.
content? No.
I will
But it
deliver
means
your
that
order
you
personally.
value the
I will
authenticity
deliver
of
your
the
order
author's work,
personally.
And you
The
don't want to see
item
it be
is
censored
ready.
by a third party that is trying to exercise creative control. And I think that's kind of what's really happening here. It's not about the changes specifically, it's about why they're happening.
But when you have platforms that are telling you that you need to change the contents of your game, to
Your
be less
orders.
violent,
You don't
be
have
less
to tell us
explicit,
twice.
show less
So
titties or
be it.
whatever.
Make it
You
fast.
gotta play by their
We have
rules.
wiped out an
The
enemy
changes to the
colony.
console version are small enough that
A
most
new
people
colony
here would
has been
notice.
founded.
We didn't say anything, but we want to be
Gus
transparent.
as a child, you mean Griffith? Both. Look it up.
It's largely just evidence and nudity that's altered, and the texture changes don't affect the PC version. In conclusion, they're looking forward to their console launch and relieved to be fully finished with all of their console launch certification processes. And as you probably know already, this has
Time
pissed
to
off
bid.
a
Place
lot
them
of
high.
people. The first comment on this post is huge respect for creating one of the standout games in its genre and keeping the experience alive and thriving years after release.
Make
I
it
gotta say,
fast.
on one hand,
We'll see
I
it
actually
done.
agree, and as you can see, the clown emojis are being thrown out. You're censoring the
That's,
game.
yeah, that's just people that don't like him. Yeah.
Not a fan. These
Mining
ones are getting
upgrade
outvoted.
complete.
Loving
You got the
new
full
animations,
weight of
but
a
toning down the
starbase
graphic
at your
themes of the game is a
disposal.
bit questionable. I actually agree. It's one of the main reasons why we all got excited about this game.
I don't think that, like, and this is another thing that a lot of people might not
Military
understand,
research
is that
complete.
I think that in a lot of cases, a game like this, a tactical shooter game where you're going in and killing people and
Make
like,
it fast.
holding them down with a shotgun and blowing their face off. Do you want to
Planet
know who plays
item
those
complete.
games? Young guys,
Our
teenage
fleet
guys,
is under attack.
like the ages of 13 to 40-year-old men. That is, in my opinion, probably
cremation.
like 90.
The item is ready.
Guys like that don't want to have their game censored in order to appeal to an audience that doesn't even want their game. That's the reason why. It's just
Let
it's
this be a
literally just
lesson.
guys.
Next time, pay up.
So what's the problem? Well, the problem is that they're removing and toning it down in order to make the game more agreeable with consoles.
Civilian
and
structure
I think that
complete.
the reason why PC players are upset about this is because now the PC
You got the
version
full
the
weight
game is
of a
being affected
starbase
too.
at your
So
disposal.
now you bought this
Our
game,
shields
and
are
now
down,
your
Commander.
game is being changed
Commerce upgrade
because
complete.
Of the PC,
Item
because
is
of the
complete
console.
and
Of
online.
course, that's going to make you mad.
Civilian structure complete.
Yeah,
The item is ready. Make it fast. Military research complete.
Like, I don't think anybody criticizes Blizzard for making a Chinese version of WoW where they don't show corpses, because it's not in
We have
actual,
wiped out
like,
an
Western
enemy
version.
colony.
But when
A
you
new
have,
colony has
whenever
been
you
founded.
Force, like, for example,
Civilian
if
research
the
complete.
Chinese version of the game was forced on all players, I think you'd see people be very frustrated.
Like concept trailer where they showed
Yeah.
the officers opening up the shipping container and there were kids in there being trafficked and you rescue them. Those themes are what sold us on the game in the first place. And like this person points out, it was either that, the censoring of the game, or they get an adults only rating, which is basically commercially non-viable. So here we are. We're sitting here at the cusp of a console release, and we have people now downvoting the game because they're not a fan of the censorship that is inevitably going to be coming to the PC version of the game. Now, here's the thing. For the console crowd, if there wasn't cross-play and they wanted to downtone it, like, it is what it is. The fact that
I don't think people would really care if they toned it down on the console-only version and the PC version wasn't changed.
Have already purchased the game, most likely based on some of those.
Another structure is in the way.
In the screenshots.
Item complete, Commander. Time is short. Military research complete.
The fact that
you don't have to tell us twice. Mining upgrade complete.
Let the bidding commence.
Planet item complete. You got the full weight of a starbase at your disposal. Hostile forces have arrived. Military research complete. Civilian structure complete. Civilian research complete. Need something destroyed? Civilian structure complete. The item is ready.
The fact that it affects the PC
Need something destroyed? We have
out
wiped out an enemy colony. A
It's
new
questionable,
colony has
and
been
it just
founded.
downright fucking
We'll
sucks.
see it
Awake here
done.
points out,
Civilian
here we go,
research
all
complete.
PC players suffer.
The strength of the coalition. Our fleet has arrived at a phase jump inhibitor and is now trapped. Our fleet is under attack. The item is ready. Need something destroyed?
No,
the strength of the coalition. Military research complete. The item is complete. Civilian structure complete. Military research complete. Commerce upgrade complete. Shields down.
Let the bidding commence.
Ready or not is
Hostile forces have arrived. Civilian research complete. Civilian structure complete. We have wiped out an enemy colony. Time is short. A new colony has been founded.
No bid. You missed out.
Planet item complete. The strength of the coalition. Shields down. Military research complete. One of our enemies has finished a
That's also
Titan.
another good point to keep in mind is that the devs don't obviously, like, why would the devs want this? But they're just capitulating to the consoles because they want to make more money.
Can be on the console version. Probably would have made their lives a lot easier. But if I could give the developers a little bit of advice, you do not want to jump into a thread like
Another
this
structure is in the
with
way.
this response. For clarification, the changes aren't extensive. They're only minor skin changes, with the most significant change.
You
being
got
that
the
players
full
lose the
weight of a
ability to
starbase
desecrate
at your
corpses.
disposal.
Well, I mean, again, the thing is that this is, I think, one of the worst arguments that somebody can make is that it's really small, so it
They're
doesn't
through
matter.
our armor.
Because it can be easily reversed
Item
back
complete,
onto the
Commander.
developer or the
Commerce
person making the
upgrade
change.
complete.
So, like,
Time
if you're
is
complaining
short.
about something and then somebody tells you, oh,
You don't
well,
have to
this
tell
shouldn't
us
matter
twice.
to you, it's just really small. Well, okay, well, if it doesn't matter to me and it's really small, then why does it exist? Why are you doing it if it doesn't matter?
Which I know for some people,
Military
it's
structure
not a big deal,
complete.
but read the room.
The item is ready.
There's
Let
so
the
much
bidding
stuff.
commence.
Gerard's Gilly just
Military
did it.
structure
It's not
complete.
about the change, it's about why
We have
it's
wiped out an enemy colony.
Further, the woman on
Shields
port
down.
tattered clothes
A
instead of
new
being
colony
nude.
has been
Small
founded.
changes like that.
Military
People
structure
don't like that. Guys
complete.
don't like that.
Military
Yeah, they want to
research
watch
complete.
Gritty,
Time is
brutal,
short.
savage,
No bid.
awful games.
You
That's what they
missed
love.
out.
Look at all
So
the really, really popular guy movies over the years. They're all absolutely fucking brutal. Look at Mortal Kombat. There's a million fucking examples of this. This isn't what guys want.
You gotta read the room.
That's it.
I think this comment really just sums up how I feel. Look, I get the overall challenge with the porting process.
Military structure complete. Research rate upgrade complete. Item complete, Commander.
As somebody who backed this game back
Planet
in
item
2000, I think it was
complete.
2017,
Military structure
2018.
complete.
It kind of sucks to see the neutering of that atmosphere happen.
Civilian
because
structure
they wanna
complete.
put it on consoles.
The
I
item
totally
is
understand.
ready.
The
Make
console
it
crowd has
fast.
been begging, dude. The console crowd's been begging for fucking anything with a
don't
gun
have
on
to
it
tell
for
us
years
twice.
on end. I totally get it. But
Yeah,
it
sure.
does
We'll
kind of
see
suck.
it
As
done.
you can see, their community hub is being more desecrated
Entering
than the corpse
phase
can be now.
space.
There's
Jesus
so
Military
many
research
people
complete.
complaining. I was about to
Wow.
buy this game. Fuck
The
censorship.
strength of the
Crossplay was a mistake.
coalition.
If they censor, we should all mass downvote the game. That's what's happening now.
But the thing, no, they should. I totally support the community in this, and the reason why is that if enough people complain about censorship, you have to keep in mind why censorship happens. So censorship happens because of the premise that some people will be offended, and the amount of people that are offended will be a larger group of people than the people that want
Need
the
something
change.
destroyed?
And so the change
So
is made
be it.
in order to appeal to the largest
Defense
type of
upgrade
audience.
complete.
So the way that you
Entering
fight against
phase
censorship
space.
is you come together
Our
and
fleet
you show
is under
that this
attack.
censorship actually is more alienating
shields
to
are
do
down, Commander.
than not. Sorry,
Military structure
to do
complete.
than not to do. So that's the way
Military
that you fight
research
directly
complete.
against censorship.
Ready
is that
for
you
battle.
have to figure out why
Time
the
is
censorship
short.
happens. It happens to
Let the
make people
bidding
happy.
commence.
So if censorship happens to make people happy, and then you see people that are
Like
happy,
bringing a
then
gun
the
to a
censorship
knife
loses
fight.
its purpose, and the
Ready
censorship
for
doesn't happen
battle.
as much. That's the reason why I totally support
Yes,
them.
Commander,
It's
at
because I
once.
don't want to see this happen to my games. I saw World of
Good
Warcraft
day,
get censored
Commander.
a lot. You had, like these photos, not photos, these like pictures that are made of like these characters in a game and like bikinis and stuff. And they got rid of that and they replaced them all with fruit. Well, I don't like that. Is it because I'm some kind of gooner that wants to see these characters be, like some like girl in a bikini? No, I don't care about that at all. It doesn't really matter. But what does matter is the fact that it matters to them. And the fact that it matters to them, and
No
they wanna
bid.
push it into that,
You
and they
missed
wanna make
out.
me and
Our fleet has
change
arrived at
my
a phase
media
jump inhibitor
change
and is
my
now
game
trapped.
because it makes
Time
them
is
uncomfortable.
short.
I think
Military
that as
research
players,
complete.
We need to push back
Prepared
against
to
this
engage,
in
but we
general.
might need some
We need to
backup.
push back against
Research
having
rate
games
upgrade
censored
complete.
in order
We're
to
losing
appeal
ground.
to a small
Let's make
minority
every
of people
shot count.
who, in a lot of
Shields
cases,
down,
aren't even
Commander.
interested
What
in the
now?
game in the first place.
Make it fast.
And so, if you can
Item
get
complete,
enough
Commander.
people together,
We're
and you
falling
can get
apart
people
here.
angry enough
Need
about
immediate
this,
assistance.
You can reverse these
Need
types of
something
censorship
destroyed.
changes, or you
Good.
can punish
We're
a
going
company
down.
and damage a game
Our fleet
so
has arrived at
much
a phase jump
that it
inhibitor
kills the
and is
company
now
and it
trapped.
kills the game,
Our fleet
and
is
it
under
serves
attack.
as an example for
We'll
future
see
developers
it
to not
done.
make that same mistake.
Time to bring
And I
the
think that's the
thunder.
way that you have to do it. Because ultimately, we are the customer, and the consumer is always right in matters of taste. And like, look at Concord. We killed Concord. That's it. You don't see a lot of Concords coming out anymore. It's dead. Yeah, Helldivers 2 boycott. Yes, exactly. They shut down discussions tab for the game to shut people up. It's blank except for pens now. Yeah, because they're afraid. Destroying your reputation in your game to sell a few copies on console. Smart. Exactly. And so the reason why they do this is because there's not a counterbalance for people that are able to advocate to not have media and
Maximum
content
civilian
censored.
orbit slots
And
reached.
ultimately, I think that's what matters the most, is that it's not about whether you can dismember somebody in this video game or not. It's about whether you want to have
Let the
some
bidding
corporate
commence.
decision maker that goes through 7 different
Civilian
levels of
structure
HR,
complete.
make that decision
Military
for you.
structure
You want
complete.
to have the
We have
individual
wiped out an
director
enemy
or
colony.
artist make
A
that
new
decision
colony
on a
has been
personal level.
founded.
No, the consumer's always right in matters today, so you get horrible watered down culture that
So
America has now. Our
be it.
music is shit, our movies are shit.
Civilian structure complete.
I don't think that's the reason why. But anyway, and that's the way that you fight against censorship, is that you openly, you are as loud and as negative about it as you possibly can be. And if you do that enough, the censorship goes away. Because censorship is done out of fear. And so if you make them more afraid of you than they are of the people that are looking for censorship, then they won't do censorship. That's how to solve the problem. You pressure people and you put the pressure on a lot, and that gets things to change. And I understand this might sound like kind of a Machiavellian way of doing it, and it is. It works. Do you want to do the thing that will create the outcome that you want? I do.
Maximum civilian
And that's how
orbit
to do
slots
it.
reached.
Mass downvotes
I
and bitching
guarantee
on
it.
community hubs is only going to get you so far. When you look like the game's sitting at the last 30 days, gained up, it went down, came up. I'm guessing that has a lot to
That's
do
already
with
how
the
we got
Steam
Tone
Summer
Police
Sale.
for years. Yeah.
Right now there's 12,000 people.
Yeah. And the way that you stop tone policing is you actively push against it as loudly and as
maximum
openly
civilian
as possible.
orbit slots
and you don't
reached.
support people that support it at all. That's how you push it down. That's how you get rid of it. Karen strategy, loud and annoying. Exactly. And the thing is that you should never be afraid to use tactics that other people would use against you. Whenever you're looking to achieve a goal, the only thing that you should do is look at how can I get to where I'm at? How can I get to where I want to be? And not build up
maximum civilian orbit slots
how to
reached.
talk ends justify the means. I don't think that it's really an ends justifying the means. I think it's totally fair to do this. What am I saying here? I'm saying
civilian structure complete.
The commercial product is being changed in a way that you don't like. I'm not saying that to burn down a building. I'm not saying to go out and commit
No
crime.
bid.
I'm just
You
saying, hey,
missed
tell people that you
out.
don't like this and that you're not going to buy a game because of it. I can't desecrate a dead body tantrum. That's right. And again,
Time
if
is
enough
short.
people complain about that,
Military
they're gonna let you do
structure
it. Keep it in
complete.
mind. It's the principle
Mining
that matters.
upgrade
At the end of the
complete.
day,
Item
I,
complete,
and I think
Commander.
a lot of other people
Civilian
don't wanna be
structure
told
complete.
What I can and can't
Planet
look at,
item
and what I can and
complete.
can't see. It's that
Civilian
simple,
structure
period.
complete.
It doesn't matter what
Entering
the context
phase
is or
space.
anything else.
We'll see
Of course,
it
there's some
done.
exceptions, but this isn't one of them.
Military
Especially when I paid
structure
for it.
complete.
Yes, so with the condescending
Civilian
shadow language,
structure
well, it just doesn't
complete.
work on me. What if you want to desecrate corpses? What if you want to dismember them and like pull their arms off? Why shouldn't you be able to do that? It's only a video game. Who cares? Really, like, it doesn't matter. Nobody's dying. Nobody's getting hurt by this. It's not even real. Who cares?
Online, which the game
times
doesn't seem to be
of
losing
war are
steam
upon
at all.
us.
When you look at the charts for 2025, like the game was kind of losing steam, trickling down 7,000, 6,000.
You got the full weight of a star base at your disposal.
Steam summer sale starts and starting to climb right back up to around 11,000.
Aye.
It's not at its highest peak by any stretch.
Yeah.
So while it's down a little bit from where it started at the beginning of the year, where it was hitting
One of our
peaks
enemies
around
has finished a
20,000,
Titan.
Yeah.
it hasn't
Military
dropped enough to
research
really,
complete.
probably make a
Logistics
difference
upgrade
to
complete.
developers. I
Our
think they
fleet
can
has arrived
clearly
at a
tell
phase
that a
jump
lot of people
inhibitor
are pissed
and is
off
now
at this
trapped.
change. And it's
Let
tough because
the
I completely
bidding
understand both
commence.
sides of the coin. The
Civilian
developers
structure
wanna get this into
complete.
many people's hands.
Comlink
People have been
active.
begging for them to
The
do it, and this is
strength of the
compromise that they have to
coalition.
make to be able
Sure.
to
No
pass these
bid.
certifications.
You
But I also
missed
understand the gamer
out.
side of things. I don't think the console crowd actually cares about it.
The item
Maybe I'm
is
wrong.
ready.
Maybe I'm misreading it. I think the console crowd is just going to be psyched to have a tactical shooter that they
Make
can
it
play
fast.
on a controller.
We
on
have
their
wiped
TV,
out an
in
enemy
their fucking
colony.
living rooms.
Military
I think the
research
biggest
complete.
problem
A
is the
new
PC
colony
people
has
who
been
paid for the
founded.
game already.
Yeah.
Don't
And
have to
it's
tell
so
us
changed.
twice.
But I can
Exactly.
completely
Planet item
understand from both
complete.
perspectives, but I
So
want to know what you
be it.
guys think down below. I have a feeling that a lot of you are going to be upset at those content changes and the censorship for the console crossplay parity. And while you're letting me know your thoughts down below, leave a like on the video,
Yeah, I think
subscribe
this is
for
good
more
video.
FPS content just like this. And if you guys want to support the channel, you can do
That's
so
Silverdale?
by going to gamersubs.gg,
It is.
using
Civilian
creator code
research
BigFry. Grab
complete.
yourself a tub of GG. It's a sugar-free
Commerce
alternative
upgrade
to energy
complete.
drinks, sports drinks,
Military
all that other
research
garbage. Grab
complete.
yourself a shaker,
We have
grab
wiped
yourself
out
a
an enemy
Arby's.
colony.
You can literally
Military
try
research
free with
complete.
free sample sent
A
to
new
your door.
colony has been
Shipping,
founded.
so you can kinda see what it is. Mix it with water.
You
guys
got the
might find
full
couple
weight of a
flavors you
star
enjoy
base
before
at your
making a
disposal.
purchase.
Yeah.
As always, my name is Big Fry. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, there it is. I think that was a
Another
pretty good
structure is
video.
in the
I mean,
way.
He explained it pretty well. I can see why people are angry about it. I don't think console players want censorship either. I don't think that anybody wants censorship. I think this entire push for censorship isn't real. And the entire idea that there's a lot of people out there that like this would alienate them is total bullshit. It's a problem.
The
that's
item
created
is
by
ready.
Karens.
Make
It's
it
real.
fast.
No, it's not. No, it's actually not. Like, again, I see
We'll
what people
see it
like. I see
done.
what people watch. I see the kind of content that people
So
consume.
be it.
It's just simply not real. The only people that are pushing this are weirdos that want to tell everybody else what to do. That's really all there is to it. It's a false narrative. Yes, this is a false narrative that's being put forward by people that don't play these video games, that want content and media that they don't even consume to fit into their worldview. And I think it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. If you want to dismember people, blow their face off, cut their arms off, or do anything like that, I think that's totally fine because it's a video game and nobody cares. Nobody's getting hurt. There's no evil that's happening. There's no violence that's occurring. It's not real. And so the entire premise of this
Military
is
structure
ridiculous.
complete.
It's a ridiculous problem. And nobody should take it seriously.
Time is
at
short.
all. Nobody should take
Item
people that
complete,
complain about this
Commander.
seriously at
Commerce
all.
upgrade
And you see
complete.
people that are like,
Entering
where was the guy
phase
that I was
space.
talking about? Like this guy right
We'll
here.
see it
And
done.
you're acting
The
like this is
item
some
is
kind of a big
ready.
thing, or
Planet
like,
item
oh, well,
complete.
ask other
Civilian
people what
structure
they think about
complete.
this. Well, I don't care what other people think about this. I care
Time
about
to
what I
bid.
think about
Place
this
them
because it's
high.
my fucking
Civilian
game.
structure
I don't need
complete.
the approval of somebody that doesn't even play. Like, why would I want the approval
Civilian
of
structure
somebody that
complete.
doesn't consume the media
Let
that
this
I'm
be a
interested
lesson.
in
Next
to tell
time,
me that
pay
it's
up.
okay
Military
to
research
be-
complete.
to consume
Our fleet
this
is under
media.
attack.
It's so cringe.
Need something destroyed?
Military sim people proving they need to be put on a domestic terrorist watch list with some of their ridiculous toxic behavior. In case you're ill-informed, the game Ready or Not is a military sim on Steam who recently censored a couple aspects of their game so they get it approved to be put on console. And it is
Civilian
now
research
being
complete.
Absolutely review bombed with military sim people freaking
Civilian
out.
research
What level of
complete.
censorship are we talking about,
Defense
Jordan?
upgrade
Military
complete.
sims should be
Military
hyper-realistic.
research complete.
We are talking
Civilian
about
research
extremely minor
complete.
tweaks to some of
Civilian
the
structure
best
complete.
things I've ever
Planet
seen
item
personally
complete.
that I can't actually talk about explicitly here on TikTok.
Civilian research complete.
But suffice to
Military
say,
research
Trust me
complete.
that I'm right,
We have wiped
but I
out an
can't tell
enemy
you what I'm
colony.
right about.
A
That's not
new
good
colony has been founded.
Go look it up. It's really not that big.
Okay,
a deal.
I'll watch a
But
video
you know
on
what is a big deal?
Remember, I was gonna
How
watch
obsessed military sim people are with these specific, extremely grotesque, brutal parts of the game being censored. They are so fixated on it. They look like disgusting perverts who should be like put in a psych ward. Like, you care that much about seeing that level of brutality? What is wrong with you? If you are one of the people review bombing it for this
Time is
situation, I
short.
want you to do an exercise with me. Go to a
You
family
don't
or
have to
friend,
tell us
someone who
twice.
doesn't play military sims or doesn't play video games. Explain
Item
what
complete,
they're
Commander.
censored, and then explain
Military
How would that
research
make any
complete.
sense? Like, so
Military
if you-
research complete.
So you
Mining
should base
upgrade
what
complete.
You like about video
Bought
games
and
on people
sorted.
that don't like
Bought
video
and
games?
sorted. I will deliver your order
I don't
personally.
even understand that.
Entering
Like, so,
phase
wait,
space.
what?
Military
Why
structure
would
complete.
you ask somebody
Aye.
who doesn't like what you like
Can
to
I
tell
do
you
out?
what you should like?
explain that you want
You got the
that
full
specific
weight of a
part
starbase
censored
at your
and why.
disposal.
And
Need
just see
something
their reaction.
destroyed?
Military simulator.
I think this is a really good example of the stuff that I talk about a lot.
Civilian
where
structure
you
complete.
Have a lot of
Planet item
people
complete.
Like this.
Military structure
I think
complete.
this is a very weak
Civilian
form of
research
thinking,
complete.
And I
They're
think that it
cruising
demonstrates
for a
itself
bruising.
as being weak.
Civilian
because it's
structure
so vulnerable
complete.
to consensus
Military
thought.
structure complete. Like
His
bringing a
entire
gun to a
justification
knife
for why
fight.
something is
Time
good
to bid.
or
Place
why
them
something
high.
is bad is based
Civilian
off of
structure
whether,
complete.
whether other people
Our fleet
like
is
it
under
or
attack.
not. This is
Control
what
group
herd
created.
animals do.
Let this be a lesson. Next
You're
time,
literally
pay
just
up.
making an appeal to consensus. That's like
Our
that
cannon
is
is
the
itching
lowest
for a
form of
target.
self-esteem
You
that you
don't
can
have to
possibly
tell
have.
us twice. Logistics
We're
upgrade
supposed to be about
complete.
Realistic shooting mechanics and realistic.
Yes.
We'll see it done.
It's not as
Fleet deployment acknowledged. You don't have to tell us twice. Civilian structure complete.
something in a game.
So be it.
Why
Hostile
should you
forces
have,
have
to look to
arrived.
somebody else's
The
opinion?
strength of the coalition.
Why is
Make
your
it
value
fast.
system
Military
up
research
for
complete.
debate?
So be it.
Why is
Item
it that
complete,
you have to
Commander.
justify what
Civilian
you like
structure
and don't
complete.
like?
The item is
Who decided
ready.
that? Who decided that
Entering
your
phase
opinions and your
space.
values
Military
and what you
structure
like is
complete.
accountable to anybody else in the world? Probably needs to change it.
The strength of the coalition.
All right.
Yeah.
If you want that, go join your country's military and go experience that level of brutality. Otherwise,
Time to bid.
and this
Place them high.
it is a simulator.
We'll
It is
see it
supposed to
done.
be a game.
Research
It's
rate
so
upgrade
fucking
complete.
And it's these
Entering
weird tone
phase
polices
space.
that want to tell
Let
everybody
this
else
be
what
a
to do.
lesson. Next time,
Wasn't
pay
that
up.
Stellar Blade censorship with outfits that got a lot of backlash? Yeah, then they changed
Military
it back.
structure complete.
And that's it.
The strength
White
of the
Knights, in case you're
coalition.
ill-informed,
We
the
have wiped
proceeds
out
called
an
a
enemy
military
colony.
sim and suggest
A
you join
new
the military
colony
because
has
there's
been
gonna be some
founded.
difference in military and tactical police unit. I don't know. I mean, that's probably true. He's probably just an idiot. But I don't usually say this. You can you practically taste the soy in his voice. Well, there's a lot
Item
of
complete, Commander.
kids like this on TikTok that
The item
you know,
is
have,
ready.
Like, this,
Military
what's
structure
the word for
complete.
it? Like this patronizing, like I'm better than you. I'm on the right side of history. like mindset, and I think it goes really well on TikTok.
Hostile forces have arrived.
People, like, the
Let
videos
the
are, like,
bidding
a minute and a half
commence.
long,
Our
and
planet
so
is under
it's something
siege.
that a stupid person
You don't have
that
to
doesn't
tell
really
us
think
twice.
about it at all can just
No bid.
immediately process and
You
be like,
missed
yeah, this
out.
is so wrong. That's so
Entering
bad.
phase
But
space.
yeah, it's just that's it. Stop tasting people's voices. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying, right? Dean Parker. I'd say kids are smarter, maybe, right? But I think that's, the good boy mafia. The hell does that mean? Well, what I mean is that, so when you have a small, whenever you have a small form of media, you're not really discussing
Another
the
structure
entire
is in the
idea
way.
of the topic. And also,
Aye.
you're not exploring any other perspectives other than your own. And so, because of that, this is the reason
Need
why,
something
for example,
destroyed?
a lot of people don't want to do podcasts.
The
This
item
is
is
why
ready.
People criticize
Our
other
fleet is
politicians
under
for not
attack.
going on Joe Rogan.
Commerce upgrade
Because you
complete.
can't maintain and defend a lot of
We'll
ideas
see
on
it
Joe
done.
Rogan. It's like the Kamala
Planet
Harris
item
thing.
complete.
She didn't go on Joe Rogan. Well, yeah, because
Item
she looked
complete,
like a
Commander.
retard. That's the reason
Aye.
why. And so
Civilian
that's the
structure
thing.
complete.
And, short-form content
Military
is
research
yes.
complete.
It's a society
Our fleet
where
is under
virtue is a
attack.
social currency. Don't be
Need
surprised.
something
We can't
destroyed?
accept the type of-
Military structure
Yeah, no, I
complete.
think so.
We have
No,
wiped
time
out
to
an
go forward,
enemy
so,
colony.
yeah, no, I
Time
think
is
people like
short.
This are super cringe. There's a lot of TikTokers that are like this. It's pathetic, but it's not really that big of a surprise. This guy doesn't get anything. People
They're
want to content.
cruising
It's more
for a
trusting creators to
bruising.
go to the places
You
people
don't
are.
have to tell
Yeah,
us
exactly.
twice.
Like, I think
Civilian
people,
research
it's the same
complete.
As the Baldur's Gate bear
Bought and
sex.
sorted.
People didn't
Bought
like
and
it because of
sorted.
the bear sex.
I
They
will
liked it
deliver
because
your
it
order
indicated
personally.
developers willing to
A
do
new
whatever the
colony
fuck
has
they
been
want.
founded.
And I think that
Civilian
people,
research
in general,
complete.
are tired of censored and neutered media in order to appeal
A minor
to
faction
certain
has been convinced to
demographics and aren't even
disrupt our
interested in the content
plans.
to begin with.
This enemy will
That's the real
pay.
reason.
We have
That's
wiped
the
out an
actual
enemy
underpinning
colony.
Of this.
Time
It has
to
nothing
bid.
to do
Place
with the
am
content
I.
itself.
Military
and
structure
everything to
complete.
do with why
So
it's happening
bid.
and the people that are
Military
pushing it.
structure complete.
So yeah, it's that simple. And my female friend loves it. Yeah, well, she's probably got a lot of books like that. Didn't Oblivion censor? Yeah, they did a little bit, and it was bad. But yeah, that's the way I see it. Weird ass shit. The content's optional for those interested. Exactly. Yeah, people can do whatever they want, and I don't see the problem with that at all.
Another structure is in the
Dragon
way.
Age, the Veilguard, the game that people insisted and ensured and promised that yes, in fact, let me go
Another
ahead
structure is in the
and look at
way.
this tweet. This is a really funny tweet. Wait, he deleted the tweet.
Military structure complete.
Basically, what happened?
Civilian
is that
research complete.
Dragon Age.
Our
came
planet
out,
is under
and
siege.
Dragon Age
Item
became
complete,
a,
Commander. Mining
an unfortunate
upgrade complete.
battleground for,
Military structure
the video
complete.
game culture
Planet
war,
item complete.
Where, you had
Let this be a
characters
lesson.
that were
Next time,
turned into
pay up.
effectively, like,
A new
modern
colony has been
representations of,
founded.
Like, gender
You've got the
politics,
full weight
and
of a
in
star
general, it
base
seemed
at your
like this game
disposal.
took no,
Make it fast.
like every
We have wiped out an
opportunity that it
enemy
could
colony.
to
You
take-
don't
to
have
take
to tell us
advantage of, like, a
twice.
current
We have
social
wiped
issue.
out an enemy
It
colony.
did that in
Our fleet has
spades.
arrived at a
And
phase
I
jump
played
inhibitor
Dragon Age
and is
a
now
lot,
trapped.
and,
We have
so
wiped
when I'm
out an
talking about
enemy
this, I
colony.
didn't finish
A
the
new
game,
colony has been
but
founded.
I played it for 135 hours. About half of that
Make it
probably was me
fast.
just leaving the game on overnight. But I went through pretty
We'll
much
see
every
it
character,
done.
companion, full storyline, and I almost completed the main story, but I didn't finish it out.
Need
So,
something
basically,
destroyed?
this game came
Let
out
the
and it
bidding
came out
commence.
to raving, tremendous reviews. Everybody was saying this game was going to be insane.
Mining
But
upgrade
anyway,
complete.
So Jason
Item
Schreier,
complete, Commander.
Made a tweet
Civilian
when the game
structure
came out, and
complete.
He said, "Go woke, go oops, top the charts." And this was to make fun of the people who